Isobars, especially across the south, so some strong and gusty winds, especially as we go through the course of today and tonight. As we go into the evening, this band of heavy and squally rain will spread its way eastwards. Behind it, a mixture of clear spells and scattered showers. That rain quite persistent later on in the night across Shetland and Orkney. But for many, temperatures still above freezing. Could just see a touch of frost across Scotland, where we still will see a little bit of sleet and snow. Into New Year's Eve itself, generally a mixture of sunny spells and scattered showers. Showers mainly focused across the west initially before transferring their way eastwards during the course of the day. Some heavy, possibly thundery showers too, and note across Shetland and Orkney that rain continuing to persist. The best of the conditions as we see out 2023 looks likely to be across the far north of Scotland. New Year's Day itself, for many southern areas, actually a much better day to come. Some sunshine here, good opportunity to get out and about. Further north, continuation of the sunshine and showers theme, and that continues as we go through the first days of the new year.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
to find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Well, 1
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and for the next few hours me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me in the next hour, broadcaster and author Christine Hamilton and also broadcaster and columnist Danny Kelly. But before we get stuck in, let's get your latest news with Aaron Armstrong.
It's 3 o'clock. Good afternoon to you. I'm Aaron Armstrong. Thousands of people's New Year's plans have been thrown into chaos after Eurostar cancelled all trains to and from London. The company's apologised after what it said was unprecedented flooding in a number of tunnels, including under the Thames. Up to 35,000 passengers may have been affected, with many of those left stranded at London's St Pancras station earlier. Some have taken to social media to vent their frustrations, saying they were only told of the cancellations at 8 o'clock this morning. And forecasters are warning people to take care ahead of New Year celebrations. Strong winds are expected and the Met Office says there's a small risk of tornadoes in many parts of England and Wales. Heavy rains also predicted across the country. Parts of Scotland are likely to see significant levels of snow. Yellow alerts will be in place until 3 a.m. tomorrow. Police may be facing renewed scrutiny over the huge amount of crimes that haven't been solved this year. New figures reveal there were 4.7 million unsolved crimes in 2023. That's almost 86% of those reported. 1.7 million were of a violent nature, with a further million down to criminal damage or arson. In many cases, police failed to find a suspect. Labour says the Conservatives' record on solving crimes is disgraceful, and it's accused the government of letting criminals off and letting victims down. The UK has accused Russia of deliberately targeting civilians in Ukraine. It comes after its most devastating air attack since the invasion began. Ukraine says the brutality of the strikes on Friday, which killed 31 people, proves there can be no talk of a truce with Moscow. President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia used everything in its arsenal, firing more than 100 missiles at targets, including a maternity hospital. The UN Security Council has condemned the violence, with the UK's representative, Barbara Woodford, accusing Russia of deliberately killing innocent people.
These missiles were aimed at population centres across Ukraine, at Kyiv, Lviv, Dnipro, Odessa, Kharkiv, Kamytsky and many more cities. They struck homes, apartment buildings, shopping centres and metros. A maternity hospital and a regional oncology centre have been damaged. In short, civilian infrastructure.
A 23-year-old man has appeared in court charged with the murder of Chris Marriott, who was hit by a car in Sheffield. The father of two was with his family when he tried to help a woman lying unconscious in the street on Wednesday. He was killed when a car ploughed into a small crowd. 23-year-old Hassan Jangur is also facing 5 counts of attempted murder. He's due to appear at Sheffield Crown Court on Tuesday. 2 men have been killed in a house fire in South London. Emergency services were called to an address on Sanderstead Road in Croydon just before 11 o'clock last night. 2 men were pronounced dead at the scene. 2 other men are in a life-threatening condition in hospital, while a 5th person's been discharged. The cause of the fire is being investigated. Shameless cronyism and a slap in the face to working people. Just 2 of the criticism of Liz Truss's resignation honours list. Britain's shortest-serving Prime Minister has handed out 11 peerages to political allies, Tory donors and former aides, which amounts to a peerage for every 4 days in office. Labour says honours should be for public service, not for rewarding Tory failure. Liz Truss resigned last October after 49 days amid economic turmoil sparked by her so-called mini-budget. Meanwhile, Dame Shirley Bassey's been given the highest award in the King's New Year's honours list. The legendary singer is the 64th living member of the Order of the Companions of Honour in recognition of her services to music. It's limited to 65 members at any one time. Dame Shirley has sold 135 million records worldwide. The Glastonbury Festival founder Michael Eavis and the Wetherspoons boss Tim Martin have been knighted, and there are damehoods for author Gilly Cooper and MP Siobhan McDonagh, amongst others. And life coaches and running clubs will be recommended to those on long-term sick leave to get people back into work. Doctors, employers and job centres will be encouraged to suggest therapeutic recreation, such as gardening or cooking clubs, in an effort to reduce the number of people signed off. A pilot scheme called Work Well will see the concept tested in 15 areas before it is expanded nationally. We're live across the UK on TV, on digital radio. If you want us on your smart speaker, just say play GB News. Now it's over to Nana.
Thank you, Aaron. It's fast approaching 6 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now, coming up, as an official watchdog reveals that our cops are, quote, inadequate, I'll be discussing whether the police force is beyond repair. Then stay tuned at 3:20. It's Climate Control. We debate issues around the climate, from flash floods to wildfires across Europe. Are we in the middle of a climate crisis, or is it simply just weather? Paul Burgess and Jim Dill will go head to head. Then at 3:35, Dr. Chris Smith, a.k.a. the Naked Scientist. Don't worry, he'll be fully clothed. Well, I hope so. He's going to be live to discuss all things vaccines, with London reporting the lowest uptake rates for the MMR vaccine. I'll be diving into why and if Brits are putting their children in danger. Then, to shine the light on the economy, economist Justin Urquhart-Stewart is in the political spotlight this week. Will 2024 bring more tax cuts? Can Labour save the economy? And Justin will give us his take. That's on the way. As ever, tell me what you think on everything we're discussing. Email gbviews@gbnews.com or tweet me at gbnews. So you may have been outside. If you're in sort of Middle England, it's probably not so bad, but the Met Office have issued a yellow weather warning for southern England and Wales, with heavy wind and rain expected from 10 a.m. Now, parts of the country will face up to 75 mile per hour gusts of wind and 2 inches of rain during the New Year weekend. Now, this latest weather warning comes just after the chaos caused by Storm Gerrit earlier this week. Well, with us now to give us the latest, GB News reporter Jack Carlson. Jack, where are you? Where are you? Get back home. Joking. Where are you?
I'm in Porthclawr in Wales, where, of course, the wind has really been hitting this coastline hard today. I just want to bring you the latest line that we've got from the Met Office on the weather today. They say that there is essentially a chance of isolated tornadoes because of a band of heavy rain that's moving east across parts of Wales and parts of England. They say the risk is higher further south that you go, that those areas will be having some briefly intense periods of wind and rain, but they say they can't rule out a few tornadoes appearing. Of course, it was in Greater Manchester, wasn't it, earlier in the week that we saw how 100 properties were damaged by that mini tornado that ripped the roof off one of the houses. So the Met Office issuing that warning there. That they say that because of the way that the weather's going and is heading east and north at the same time, that particularly there could be risks of isolated tornadoes. But as well here in Wales, there has been that yellow warning from 11 o'clock this morning for wind, from 10 o'clock for rain. We've not had any rain particularly here where I am just yet, but we do think around 3 o'clock is when it's going to start to really pour down across different parts of this country. There has also been some rain. There are 15 flood alerts in place. That, of course, are only warnings that people should prepare for possible flooding should certain rivers overflow and burst their banks. But, of course, those could easily be upgraded to flood warnings, official flood warnings, if of course that rain does continue. We've seen the evidence of the snow and the disruption up there, of course, in Scotland, and also down in London as well, at London St Pancras, with the Eurostar having to cancel all their trains from London onto the continent because of course, flooding in one of the high-speed tunnels. We know a tanker has arrived on scene there to try and clear away that water and of course end that disruption. But for people trying to get around for New Year's Eve and for New Year's Day, there's a bit of disruption because of this weather today. I'm
just so distracted with that on your head. Is it a headband or is it a hat? GB News, I love it. Did they give that to you? I want one.
This was a little present. It is a hat. It's a beanie hat. It's a little present, and it's keeping my ears nice and warm.
Oh, Well, I hope we've got some of those on the website, because I want one. Jack, so what are they predicting then? Is it just that part of the world, so Wales and southern England, or are they predicting that the storms are going to move further up north, because they've already had a battering?
Yeah, so parts of the Midlands particularly could get hit by some rainfall, but nothing as serious in terms of as so much of a yellow weather warning, which has been, of course, put in for southwest England and for Wales. We know Scotland's been hit pretty hard by some wind and snow, particularly as well. The gritters have been out on the roads to try and, of course, keep those main transport networks in Scotland clear. Spready Mercury, one of the gritters, is out on the road today to try and help the disruption. So Scotland's always got some funny names for some gritters. So Spready Mercury is my favourite. That's out on the road today to try and help not cause so much disruption. But yeah, so it's particularly Wales and the southwest that's causing the most of the wind and the rain, and Scotland for snow and ice.
That's great. I love that. Spready Mercury. Listen, thank you very much, Jack. Good to talk to you. That's Jack Carson. He's there in Wales. And don't forget, coming up, Climate Control, Jim Dale and also Paul Burgess will be discussing and debating the issues around the climate. But in all the festive cheer, it's important to remember that the world doesn't stop. South Africa accused Israel of genocide acts today, launching a case at the UN court. And joining me from Israel to discuss this is Mr. Fire Uri Geller. Uri, thank you so much for joining me. So, Uri, hope you are well. How are things with you first? I always like to hear how you are.
Yeah, we're okay. And first of all, Nana, thanks for having me on your show. And I want to wish GB News and all your viewers a very happy New Year. Sadly, it is not a happy New Year here in Israel or Gaza. There's still 130 Israeli hostages in Gaza, and Hamas are destroying their own people. Now, at a time, this is answering your question, at a time when the civilized world should be supporting Israel, it is outrageous that South Africa has accused my country of committing genocide against the Palestinians. This is a terrible lie, by the way. It's a lie. And South Africa knows it. Genocide is what happened to the Jews in the Holocaust. Genocide is what Turkey did and Turkey committed against the Armenians in 1915. Genocide is what ISIS carried out against the Yazidis. Israel is not committing genocide against the Palestinians, just the opposite. We are going out of our way to try to avoid harming innocent Palestinians. And do you know that the Palestinian population of Gaza has grown by more than 6 times in the last 50 years. What kind of genocide is it when population grows? And just to remind you all, once again, this is my island behind me. And if you all want to help Palestinian children, by the way, I turned my island into a country. This is the flag of the country. If you want to help Palestinian children become a citizen of my Lamb Island, because it costs $1 and the money goes to Save a Child's Heart, which is a charity here in Israel that does open heart surgery to children from all around the world, 68 countries. Believe it or not, up to today, we saved 8,000 kids, and half of them are Palestinians. There's one more thing that I want to tell you and your viewers, something very important. You have to understand who we are fighting against, Nana. This week, the New York Times newspaper published an investigation which revealed that Hamas did not just kill 1,200 innocent people, but they specifically targeted women. The New York Times described how Hamas terrorists carried out the most unbelievable acts of sexual violence against women before they murdered them. It was organized and it was deliberate. Nana, Israel is fighting evil and we have to win. We have no choice.
Yeah, well, look, it's undisputed that they did, they did horrendous things to the women. But some people would argue, and, I have to put this to you, Uri, that 21,000 people, and they are, of course, Hamas figures, in Gaza have been killed, and the Israeli army are telling people to go to certain areas, and then, there's literally nowhere left on that place that is potentially a safe place. So whether people want to term it as genocide or whatever the word is, a lot of Palestinians are being killed.
Look, Nana, sadly, this is war. And every war, unfortunately, tragically, has civilian casualties, civilian deaths. Please understand that. Just to remind you, if you do want to help Palestinian kids and you want to get on my website, urigeller.com, the island comes up immediately. Please become citizens. All the money, $1, that's all you have to pay. $1 goes to a good cause. Nana, thank you once again having me on your show. I love you, and Happy New Year to all of you.
Yeah, all right. Well, listen, Nuri, you take care of yourself. I know you're doing all of this for charity. It's not something that you're personally benefiting from. Listen, it's really good to talk to you. Take care of yourself. Thank you so much for coming on, and have a wonderful New Year. So sad to hear what is happening in Israel and, of course, within Gaza as well. Very, very sad. I really wish they would stop fighting, but hopefully there'll be an end to it in sight soon. But if you just tuned in, welcome on board. It's just coming up to 15 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. On the way, Political Spotlight. Justin Urquhart-Stewart will be here to shine the light. Will Labour be the answer to the failing economy? But up next, we'll be looking back on some of the climate events of 2023, discussing whether they're down to man-made or just nature. This is GB News.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. Welcome on board. If you just tuned in, this is GB News. We are the People's Channel. I'm Nana Akua. It's just coming up to 20 minutes after 3 o'clock. And, of course, it's now time for Climate Control, where we unpick the latest stories relating to the debate around climate change. And today I'll be looking back at some of the major events in 2023. It's been apparently the hottest year in recorded history, with some scientists saying that humans are unable to deal with the climate crisis of their own making. So we've seen flash floods in Libya, killing more than 11,300 in a coastal city of Derma. Wildfires ripped across Europe and Hawaii, with thousands of people evacuated across countries. And, of course, more close to home, Storm Gerrit, which has been causing havoc across the UK. That's threatening nearly an 80 mph winds in the next few days. But with some lighters and arson equipment found in locations of the Mediterranean and bad weather given over Britain's winter months, I'm taking a deep dive into these climate disasters and asking lots of questions. So joining me to unpick, I've got Jim Dale, meteorologist and commentator, also Paul Burgess, a climate scientist. Right, so I'm going to start with you, Jim Dale.
Yes.
OK, so I've been generous. I've talked about climate so-called catastrophes in 2023.
You've done my job for me, almost.
No, but they're open to discussion. So talk to me about some of the things that...
well, look, Nana, you could have gone on and on and named 100 different things that have happened and more across the globe. We often take our eyes away from the rest of the globe and only look at ourselves. But in this case, this has been a tumultuous year in terms of what's gone on, how it's gone on, the amount of people that have been affected by, not just in the UK. I think the UK is sometimes on the periphery of this, but the biggest one, I say the biggest one, sea surface temperatures, ice decreasing from Antarctic and Antarctic as well. But the disasters that you've already mentioned are the big ones. They're the ones that stand out. I've got a little piece from this morning's paper in The Guardian here. Climate disasters of 2023 reveal a failure to stem the crisis, experts say, which is precisely what you said on the intro. That's absolutely right. We've lost control.
Well, I balanced the intro, so you're talking as though I'm
just repeating what you basically said. But we've lost control, and to wrestle that back, I don't want to be completely negative, make that absolutely clear. There are things that we can be positive about. For example, today, another day, 40% of our energy came from wind, the #1 top spot, and it has been for the last week or two all the way through. So I think that will increase. I think the renewables will increase. I think we've reached the top of fossil fuel emissions. I think they will start to decline in 2024. So that's the good news. The bad news is the catastrophes that we've seen this year will be repeated, not necessarily in the same places, but make this absolutely clear. They will happen worldwide, globally.
No, this is a prediction. You're no soothsayer. I mean, come on. Look,
I'll be next year saying the same thing.
OK, well, and maybe it won't have happened even then. I mean, that's the question. But with regard to Libya... Yeah. Right, now, that was caused by a dam bursting.
OK, so let me give you the facts. It was caused by 2 dams bursting, actually. But what was the causal effect? It was 8 inches of rain within a 24-hour period. Phenomenal amounts of rain. In other words... So
you're saying the dam bursting caused rain? What do you mean?
No. The rain aggregated 8 inches of rain in a very... In fact, it wasn't 24 hours. It was actually 8 hours. 8 inches of rain falling is equivalent to, give or take, 4 months of London rain. In other words, in a few hours that landed, and that is what. Yeah, the dams might not have been in the greatest.
They weren't maintained, were they? Had they been there?
Water in there
in a non-maintained dam, badly maintained dam.
Well, you saw what happened. You saw, and you know the headlines in some right-wing newspapers, The Sun, The Mail. Run for your life, all of this type of thing from the wildfires and other,
I need to bring it over to Paul Burgess because you said a few things. So your main things. Just give me the first thing you talked about was
this is the greatest year of climate change
Greatest year of climate change ever. Jim says it's the greatest year of climate change.
It's total nonsense. I mean, this is the Jim who promised you and me that he produced the evidence for more droughts when the IPC say there aren't any. And the IPC say there aren't any more floods as well, etc., as do the environment agencies from both sides of the Atlantic, etc. So I go on data here, right? So if you take the dam, and, that's my speciality, as it were, that was a dam failure. What is a flood? It's too much water in a limited time. It's not water of a long time. And you can't get worse than a dam bursting for a flood, because you get a lot of water suddenly. That's what a flood is. And there's no evidence that Jim can produce, and I challenge him again now, because he never produces evidence. I challenge him to produce the evidence for increasing floods in the world, because if he does, he's gone against the IPCC, the Environment Agencies, the lot. Next one, let's take tornadoes. As it happened, you know, there's more tornadoes in the UK per square mile than there are in America. I didn't know this.
Number 2, actually. Number 2.
No, well, actually, you're going to disagree with David Schultz, who happens to be the professor. Can I do it without interruption?
Because we let you talk to me.
Professor of synoptic meteorology at the University of Manchester. He agrees with me. The tornadoes got nothing. Tornadoes happen. He had a PhD thesis on this, one of his students, and it works out that we get 2.3 in a unit area, 2.3 tornadoes a year, and America only gets 1.3.
Well, what about
tornadoes? And I've got data here. I actually handed one of them to show who's worse in the past and the patterns. So tornadoes are nothing to do with climate as such.
What about the wildfires in Europe?
Right, let's take the wildfires in Europe then. Right, the wildfires in Europe, again, if you look, well, in wildfires in Europe, I have a chart here. I've got one here, which I gave to the producer.
Can we get the wildfires in Europe chart out?
No, well, the wildfire in Europe is here.
Oh, we haven't got it.
No, we've got it here.
Right. What does it all mean? They can't see that. So just, if you put that down and just describe it, just tell us.
What? This is the European Environment Agency again. Yeah. I use data, yeah? And this doesn't show it. It shows a decline, if anything, of wildfires in Europe. Yeah. See, when you actually come to look at the data, when you're looking at climate, you've got to look at wildfires or floods, whatever it is, over a period of time. You haven't got any information. And I challenge you, because last time you said, and Nana repeated it, that you will produce the drought information, and you didn't.
It's not a case of coming on the thing with bits of paper, trying to flag them like you do, saying this is evidence, because most of the stuff you produce is bogus, to be frank with you. You've mentioned Europe. Europe had tremendous wildfires.
It's the Met Office.
Bear with me. Europe had tremendous wildfires, but you neglected to mention Canada, who had its worst wildfires ever.
No, I've actually got Canadian information.
Well, he said he's got the Canadian information.
New York.
Let's talk about the Canadian information, because he talked about Canada.
The smoke that went into New York and all of that sort of stuff.
You see,
let him respond, because you've made a comment.
All the time. You don't even know what climate is. I'm sorry. I know you're a climate consultant, but you ought to know what it is. What it is, if you're going to look at wildfires in Canada, you've got to look over a period of time. And I didn't know I was going to be asked that. I looked at it recently, and it's got less. So you can't. I'm sorry. When I present you with data, you never ever present me with data back, ever.
Paul,
right, that's all I can do.
Bogus rubbish.
But that's. I'm going to have to stop you there. No. But he has pulled things off from the IPCC, and some of the things.
He's extrapolated little bits of the IPCC that don't count. You know what the IPCC is? It's a 90-page report that basically backs up what NASA, NOAA, and other organisations have been saying since the year.
Produce it, because it's bogus.
I don't need to produce it.
No, you can't.
Coming on here with a scrap of paper trying to show it to radio listeners.
This is the Royal Meteorological Society on the African floods. This is the Royal Meteorological Society saying that there's no way you can attribute it to climate change.
Again, you're cherry-picking like crazy.
I'm not cherry-picking.
I'm looking absurd what you say. What you've got to do, if I can just say, what you've got to do with all of this is join the dots. Join the dots of all of the
You live in one dot. You live in weather. I live in lots of dots.
No, you're a water resource engineer. You're not even a climatologist. So what?
All right. Hold on. Okay, no. As soon as you start doing that, I'm going to stop you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's. No. Neither of you should do that. So let's. Oh wait. What about Storm Gerrit then, or Gerrit? Jim, what is happening with this storm?
Yeah. Well, let's put it into context. Storms happen. They do happen, and it's not necessarily climate related. You can't say every single event is a climate event, because that would be wrong. That would be absolutely wrong. You've got to look after the event, maybe months and years. You've got to join these dots, but you can't say Gerrit's climate change. What you've got to look at is what's in it, how it occurs, whether there are a procession of them.
Can you see how it's occurred now without?
Yeah, it's the jet stream. It's there's one connection to climate, and that is the ocean sea temperatures of the summer, autumn time. Extremely warm. Give it extra energy. That's Easy science, isn't it? Very, very easy science, Paul, for you.
Let me say something here. The sea contains 1,000 times more heat than the atmosphere. The sea controls our climate.
Yes, it does. I would agree with you.
The oceans control our climate more. They've got 50 times more CO2 than the atmosphere. The ocean just murmuring causes problems. The El Nino, the La Nina. In the case of the African floods, and I've got it from the Royal Meteorological Society, you know, that's not down to climate.
So what about Storm Garrett, though? We're talking about
Storm Garrett is just a normal storm. There's nothing different about it. But let me explain something. As the tropics, all the cooling and warming of the Earth takes place from either side, the poles. It doesn't take place in the tropics. The tropics more or less stay the same. So as you differentiate between the centre, the tropics, and the north, as there's a bigger differential, you get more extreme weather. So when it's cooler in the north, now I'm going to just say something, Jim.
Briefly.
22nd of December, just past, was the biggest ice extent in the Arctic since 2009. I've just published the video.
Living in dream world somewhere.
Well, I'm living in...
You really are.
Well, instead of telling us living in dream world, what have you got?
Next week. I've made a statement. Prove it next week.
It just goes on and on and on. OK, let's just say,
the video's called
what's going to happen in 2024? El Nino is still running, climate change is still going. I've said about the positive things that are going to go out there this year, hopefully. The negatives will continue. Watch the space, watch the disasters, OK? Because they will happen. That's my prediction.
He says, watch the space, watch the disasters, Jim Dale. Climate catastrophising. Well, maybe he's right. What do you think? GBnews at gbnews.com or tweet me at GBnews. This is GB News. We are the People's Channel. I'm Nana Akua, live on TV, online and on digital radio. Now, still to come, political spotlight. Justin Urquhart-Stewart. Will Labour be the answer to the failing economy? But first, let's get your latest news headlines with Aaron.
It's 3:31. Good afternoon to you. Aaron Armstrong here in the GB newsroom. Thousands of people's New Year's plans have been thrown into chaos after Eurostar cancelled all trains to and from London. It's apologised because of what it says is unprecedented flooding in a number of tunnels, including under the Thames. Up to 35,000 passengers have been affected. Many of those were stranded at London's St Pancras station earlier. And some of those have taken to social media to vent their frustrations, saying they were only told of the cancellations at 8 o'clock this morning. Forecasters are warning people to take care ahead of New Year's celebrations. Heavy rain and strong winds are expected in many parts of the country, with parts of Scotland likely to see significant levels of snow. The Met Office says yellow alerts will be in place until 3 a.m. tomorrow. Police may be facing renewed scrutiny over the huge amount of crimes that haven't been solved this year. New figures reveal there were 4.7 million unsolved crimes in 2023. That's almost 86% of those reported. 1.7 million of them were of a violent nature, with a further million down to criminal damage or arson. In many cases, police failed to find a suspect. And the UK has accused Russia of deliberately targeting civilians in Ukraine after its most devastating air attack since the invasion began. Ukraine says the brutality of the strikes, which killed 31 people, show there can be no sign of a truce with Moscow. The United Nations Security Council condemned the violence last night, with the UK accusing Russia of deliberately killing innocent people. We'll have a full bulletin at the top of the next hour, or you can get more on our website now at gbnews.com. Now it's back to Nana.
So coming up, it's just gone 33 minutes after 3 o'clock. Coming up, it's political spotlight. But up next, I've got all discussions about vaccines, and Dr. Chris Smith will be here. Don't go anywhere.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. The Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. It's 37 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News. We are the People's Channel. I'm Nana Akua. It's time for Health Watch. Fears of a measles outbreak are heightening as more and more families in the UK are reluctant to give their children the MMR vaccine. Now, with the requirement to administer 2 doses to children at 12 months and 3 years old, the vaccine also protects against mumps and rubella. So the question is, have we lost our trust in vaccines? I'm joined now by the naked scientist. He's fully clothed, thank God. Virologist Dr. Chris Smith. Chris, it's so good to talk to you. Now, why are people so against this MMR vaccine? What's happened to us? Why are we doing this?
The bottom line here is that what we're seeing across the country are low levels of uptake of the vaccine, but not everywhere, in some specific places. Now, let's wind back a bit. The reason we're worried is because in order to protect people from really infectious diseases like measles, we need to get about 95% of the population vaccinated, because measles is so infectious that the way we prevent it from spreading is to make the chances of someone who's got measles able to run into someone who can catch measles so remote that it just can't maintain a chain of transmission, so it doesn't spread through the population. And in order to do that, you need our old friend herd immunity, and that means you need about 95% vaccination rates. And what the UK HSA have been saying for a number of months now, they're really worried about, is that the level of uptake of vaccination in some parts of the country has fallen dramatically. And why that's a concern is that in certain geographies, if you have really low levels of uptake, you get a cluster of people where there is effectively a big enough community that you won't just get the odd case of measles, you can have an enormous surge, an outbreak in that particular area. And London is a real hotspot. We've got below 65% uptake of protection with MMR, the measles, mumps and rubella vaccine, and across the country more broadly about 85%. So we've got hotspots and we've got a lower uptake. And this is adding up to a risk of an outbreak that could reach into the 100, 150,000 sorts of numbers. So a big outbreak if measles gets going. And our numbers are already up on last year. If you add up how many cases we've had in 2023, we're more than 100% more cases just in the first half of the year alone than we had in the whole of 2022. So it is beginning to move, and we are worried for that reason.
But a lot of people, though, are thinking possibly that measles isn't that bad, and that because of our medicine technology we've advanced, so even if you catch it, it's not going to be that bad. Have we improved our medicines dealing with things like measles and mumps?
Measles is actually a really serious infection, and I think we're lulled into this false sense of security in the modern era that we can do anything about pretty much everything. And the bottom line is, the guy that trained me when I was a trainee doctor, he lost a close, in fact, I think his sister, to measles. So he was never in any doubt as to the seriousness of this infection. It does kill people around the world. Maybe 100,000 people a year lose their lives to measles. So it is a really serious infection. And when someone gets it, they feel really, really unwell. They have a really high temperature, that nasty rash that's in all the pictures, but you get sore eyes, bad headache, you can get bad pneumonia, and it can also cause diarrhea and vomiting. It's a really nasty disease, and it's really easy to protect with the MMR vaccine. And that's really what we're trying to do now, is to encourage people, if you've missed out on the vaccine, because COVID did throw a spanner in the works. There were people who got the first dose and didn't get the second dose, etc. We're now urging people, please, if you haven't had your child vaccinated, especially in certain parts of London and certain communities in London, and there are various outreach projects to try to warn people, do please urge everyone, if you haven't had your child vaccinated, or you as an adult don't think you're vaccinated and you have no history of measles, do please get the vaccine. You can have that at any age, and it's really effective. It will give you more than 95% protection against measles, but also mumps and rubella, which we don't want those circulating either.
And what about TB? Because I hear that's on the rise as well. And there's a vaccination for that as well, isn't there? And do you think people should be getting that one if they haven't had that?
Well, TB is a bacterial infection, tuberculosis. And during the time that your programme is on air, in fact, thousands of people will have caught it, and hundreds to thousands of people will die. Every day we lose thousands of people around the world to TB, and the evidence is about 1 person in 3 is infected with that. And what's really worrying us about TB is that we are seeing forms of that infection now that are multiply drug resistant. We've got antibiotics that don't treat some of those forms of that disease now. There is a vaccine for it, but it doesn't prevent you catching the infection. It prevents you becoming severely ill with the infection, which is why we've stopped giving it in countries where it's less of a problem, like the UK. We used to give it historically to everyone about the age of 14. We don't do that anymore because the threat is not there of severe disseminated disease, which goes to all parts of your body. But in some parts of the world, it is still very much a problem. And why numbers are on the up, apart from problems like homelessness and deprivation, is more migration. And people bring the disease with them when they move from places in the world where it's more prevalent to places in the world where it's less prevalent. And if they're not picked up by the medical system, it can become a big problem.
All right, well, listen, Chris, thank you very much for talking to me about that. Good to talk to you. That is Dr. Chris Smith. He is the Naked Scientist. You can check out his podcast. He's also a virologist. Now, lots of you have been getting in touch with your views on the topics that we've been discussing. We talked about the Israel-Hamas war. Richard says South Africa is absolutely right. Israel have treated the Palestinians in the West Bank appallingly, let alone the totally disgusting treatment of Gazans. Yes, but what about the fact they're still holding the hostages? I mean, can't they release the hostages then? I mean, let's be honest here. Remember how this reignited from October the 7th? That was disgusting, appalling, actually. And also the charter, the Hamas charter, which is that they want to exterminate all Jewish people. I mean, that... You know, I don't know what the answer is, but, you know, that needs to be taken into account. On the climate debate, Ginny says we need someone to be brave and talk about the impact of overpopulation that it's had on the climate. Thanks for that. And Malcolm says, I'm getting tired of all the climate catastrophizing. Climate alarmists seem to accentuate every event in an effort to prove their climate change agenda, including yellow weather warnings and named storms. We'll keep all your thoughts coming. It's great to hear from you. GBviews@gbnews.com or tweet me at GB News. Keep them coming. But if you just tuned in, welcome on board. 44 minutes after 3 o'clock, live on TV, online and on digital radio. But it's now time for this week's Political Spotlight. And I'll be shining a light on the future of the British economy, with the UK just skirting a recession for the most of 2023 and growth prospects still very low for 2024. I want to know, will Labour save the economy? Well, joining me now to discuss, expert Justin Urquhart-Stewart. He's an economist and a founder of Regionally. Justin, we talked about the climate catastrophe. The economy now, look at it. Are we sliding into a recession now? Because the definition, we have to be...
2 quarters of a shrinking economy.
Yeah.
And it's about negative growth. Talk English, for heaven's sake. It's shrinking, not growing. And we're not doing it yet. We're heading that way. But actually, when you consider what's happened over the past few years, with everything from the COVID, with the wars going on, and all those issues relating to the inflation coming through, and interest rates going up, actually, the global economy is in remarkable shape. Having said that, there are some serious issues, very bad issues we've got to try and manage our way through, and Britain's not in a good position, I'm afraid to say. We've built up a level of debt. We had, not on one occasion, but 2 occasions, gone back to what used to refer to as the money tree, quantitative easing, printing money. You can't keep on doing it. When they did it the first time, I remember sitting down talking with chums of mine at Bank of England saying, well, we can't do that again, can we? They said, no, we can't. 5 years later, we're doing it again. We cannot do it again. And we'll just lose all credibility.
Well, what's the worst that can happen if you do that? Are we in it at the moment? Is it inflation?
No, the economy is... what you need to do is actually make sure there's enough credible confidence to come through. Well, where does confidence come from? That's from actually people running businesses, growing businesses. Now, the good news about Britain, actually, is we are very entrepreneurial. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it. We tend to think the Americans, they're the entrepreneurial, we're rather old-fashioned. Actually, we set up more businesses in this country than France and Germany put together, and actually more entrepreneurial than many US states. What we're very bad at doing is actually financing them to grow. So we get them started, and then after that, well, get on with it then. And what you find is a lot of technology companies get taken up by the Americans, say, that's a cracking good idea, thank you very much indeed, and they ship it off to California. What we need to be able to do is actually try and address that. And that means some more imagination in our financing. We've got a stock exchange in this country which is incredibly old-fashioned, that looks after fantastic international businesses, which are old, big businesses. Where are the new ones? We have a stock market called AIM, which we started actually in Glasgow nearly 30 years ago, deliberately to try and break some of the sort of cartel that there is in terms of charging. But unfortunately, that hasn't succeeded. It's still existing. We need some more initiatives here of people trying to come up with better ways of raising money around the regions. Now, where do you want the money for? You go to those the sort of hot clusters around the universities of technology companies. And, you know, we hear all these silly names like Silicon Roundabout and Silicon Glen, Silicon Fen, or Silicon Beach, that's Brighton, apparently. And what you've got is universities have little tech hubs, and they breed. They actually produce business ideas, turn them into businesses. And if you've got one business involved in these high-tech areas, they tend to actually start producing other ones. You then need to be able to grow them into something bigger than that. And that's where we've been very bad at doing it. The banks aren't geared up to doing it. The City of London focuses only on large stuff, not very small stuff, and they tend to look at short-term lending, like private equity, which is, we'll give you a load of debt to build a business. They won't give you the money. They'll borrow the money for you, but it's the debt's your responsibility. And in 3 years' time, we'll sell it on. 3 years' time is too short. You need to have a 5 to 10-year view. So we need some proper, radical, imaginative thinking to actually say, how can we do this? There is no shortage of money. You need people to sit down and actually educate the Treasury and also some of the bankers to take a longer-term view. We've got some things here, the British Business Bank, and people begin to think like that, but it needs to be done on a broader basis across the country.
But they're in charge of it. Why do they should be educated on this anyway. And what about the Conservative Party? I mean, I don't know whether I'd say they've handled the economy well. We've had all these things that you've talked about. But now we have a prospect of a Labour government who came out with a £28 billion a year investment deal for green jobs and green investment. And, of course, the city ran scared of that because they thought it might destabilise the economy. So how do you think the Labour Party will be running the economy with some of the plans you've heard from them?
Well, what they've got to be doing is make sure they get credibility. And that's which is where actually Tony Blair and Brown were very good at. When they had the prawn cocktail campaign for 2 years before they came to power. They went around the city and they sort of said, actually, look, I know we're wearing red, but actually it's not that sort of red. We're actually going to make sure we're going to support the city. I remember that he then made the Bank of England independent. Yeah, right, OK. But nonetheless...
It's not really, is it?
But they gained credibility. At the moment, the Labour team don't quite have that credibility.
Not at all.
Where's the strength behind it? Therefore, would we trust them to do it? One of the problems I've got, years ago, I used to go to the Treasury, remember the days of privatisation, and these people were like Westminster. And, so you had the civil servant who had been there for donkey's years, always in the same department, but he knew, or she knew, everything that was going on. Now they've adopted modern HR techniques. So they go from this job, 2 years, they go to pensions, and they go to Foreign Office, and they go there. So very bright people, expert in nothing. Whereas actually what you want people being there, I'm sorry, you may be dull, but actually you're really good at doing the Treasury stuff. They don't have that expertise. And if Labour doesn't have enough of that expertise, we're sort of fumbling in the dark, rather. What I want to see from them is where is the credible creation, not just of green jobs, but the overall economy, to get more money invested in the economy, to actually make sure that money is going to be invested and redeveloped. And at the moment, I can't quite see that. It sounds a bit like trying to do the same again. But they've got to be careful. If they seem to be too radical, then everyone stares backwards and says, I don't believe you.
Yes, like Liz Truss.
It's very difficult. What they need to have is a few more people around them sort of saying, actually, these plans can work and have some support. So they need to in the middle ground. And remember, this is what, whether you like Blair or not, that's how he won the election, took the middle ground. Tories were shoved over to that side, and they were able to actually get the credibility. Whether you thought they were any good with the economy or not, it's a different issue.
Well, what about, Liz Truss has recently dished out a load of honours after her 49-day premiership. Bless her. I thought they treated her very badly, if I'm honest. But was she right with her vision of the economy and the tactics that she used? Because a lot of people saying, oh, she got it all wrong, but yet they appear to be employing a lot of the policies that she tried to initiate.
Yeah, she said quite rightly, you need to have, economy's got to have growth. Yeah. Of course it has, and that's stating stunningly obvious. No, what she did was actually just try and short-circuit everything and say, right, we'll come up with a plan here where we'll cut taxes and we'll be able to put the investment in and not show how you're going to fund it. But if you don't actually then go to the bodies who we normally go to, like the Office of Budget Responsibility, and say, sign this off for me, then you're going to have some problems. And so by not going through the normal rules, they don't get the credibility. That's why it went through. So the fact she's saying that they're saying we need to have growth, that's perfectly right. It's the way she went about it.
It's because she didn't fund it.
No, she didn't persuade everybody that actually, look, we've checked with everybody, we've checked the numbers, this is actually going to work out. I'm afraid it was in too much of a rush, too quick. And so, I'm afraid don't play magic tricks with the city. They'll just turn around and say, don't believe you, go away.
So who's in control then? If it looks to me like the city are in control and the government really don't have much power at all, do they?
Well, the problem is there's only so much you can actually do. You can raise more money, but if you raise more money, OK, where are you going to get that from? Who are you going to actually tax? What you need to be able to do is, and hence the point of growth, get more velocity, speed of money through the economy, more people spending, be it companies or individuals. And in order to do that, you need confidence. If you do that, more money going through, then the government's take, it always skims a little bit off, that gets more tax income coming.
It's all a confidence trick, really, isn't it? That's all it is. This whole thing is.
If you tell people, actually, look, the economy's got better risks and this, that and the other, but look, what we're doing, the economy's growing slowly and steadily. We're not going to go off like a rocket. We're a mature economy. We're setting up businesses. Give people the confidence to say, I'm going to set up a business. And that's a very brave thing to do. Because you're risking your house and the family and everything, all the assets you've been putting up. Give people the confidence to try and do that, and you'll be surprised what can happen. We have actually seen around Britain, this is not a southeast issue, this is around Britain, lots of these technology centres, and help them grow, give them the confidence to grow, and not necessarily interfere with them. Give them the tax benefits to be able to grow, long-term tax benefits to actually sit there and say, capital gains tax, you can keep your capital gains.
Very briefly, Justin, then, just a yes or no. Interest rates, are they going up or down? Where are they going?
Next year, they'll start going down. They should have gone down already, but
really?
Bank of England weren't paying attention.
Really? Justin Urquhart-Stewart, thank you very much. Of course, is economist expert Justin Urquhart-Stewart, which I think he should be doing something with the government and helping them out, because you know more than they do. Well, listen, stay tuned, because coming up, I'll be joined by my amazing panel, and today, it's Christine Hamilton and Danny Kelly. And up next, my monologue on the New Year's honours list, as Liz Truss comes under fire for releasing her own, and a senior boss who vets senior white male recruits is offered a damehood. First, though, let's get some weather.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. I'm Craig Snell. Well, looking ahead to New Year's Eve, for many of us really we're going to see a mixture of sunny spells and heavy showers. Still quite windy, and that's all courtesy of this area low pressure, which is only going to slowly move across the country as we go through this weekend. Note the tightly packed isobars, especially across the south, so some strong and gusty winds, especially as we go through the course of today and tonight. As we go into the evening, this band of heavy and squally rain will spread its way eastwards. Behind it, a mixture of clear spells and scattered showers. That rain quite persistent later on in the night across Shetland and Orkney. But for many, temperatures still above freezing. Could just see a touch of frost across Scotland, where we still will see a little bit of sleet and snow. Into New Year's Eve itself, generally a mixture of sunny spells and scattered showers. Showers mainly focused across the west initially before transferring their way eastwards during the course of the day. Some heavy, possibly thundery showers too, and note across Shetland and Orkney that rain continuing to persist. Best of the conditions as we see out 2023 looks likely to be across the far north of Scotland. New Year's Day itself, for many southern areas, actually a much better day to come. Some sunshine here, good opportunity to get out and about. Further north, continuation of the sunshine and showers theme, and that continues as we go through the first days of the new year.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good afternoon, welcome on board. This is GB News, we are the People's Channel. There's loads more still to come in the next hour.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV online. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We're debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me live is broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly, and also author and broadcaster Christys Hamilton. But first, let's get your latest news with Sophia.
Good morning, this is Sophia Wensler in the GB newsroom. Thousands of people's New Year's plans have been thrown into chaos after Eurostar cancelled all trains to and from London. The company apologised after what it said was unprecedented flooding in a number of tunnels, including under the Thames. Up to 35,000 passengers have been affected, with many left stranded at London St Pancras station. Some have taken to social media to vent their frustrations, saying they were only told of the cancellations at 8 o'clock this morning. And forecasters are warning people to take care ahead of New Year celebrations. Heavy rain and strong winds are expected in many parts of the country, with parts of Scotland likely to see significant levels of snow. The Met Office says yellow alerts are in place until 3 a.m. tomorrow. Police may be facing renewed scrutiny over the huge amount of crimes that haven't been solved this year. New figures reveal there were 4.7 million unsolved crimes in 2023. That's almost 86% of those reported. 1.7 million were of a violent nature, with a further million down to criminal damage or arson. In many cases, police failed to find a suspect. Labour says the Conservatives' record on solving crimes is disgraceful and has accused the government of letting criminals off and victims down. The UK has accused Russia of deliberately targeting civilians in Ukraine after its most devastating air attack since the invasion began. Ukraine says the brutality of the strikes, which killed 31 people, shows there can be no talk of a truce with Moscow. President Volodymyr Zelensky said Russia used everything in its arsenal, firing around 110 missiles at targets including a maternity hospital. The United Nations Security Council condemned the violence last night, with the UK's representative, Barbara Woodward, accusing Russia of deliberately killing innocent people.
These missiles were aimed at population centres across Ukraine, at Kyiv, Lviv, Dnipro, Odessa, Kharkiv, Kamytsky, and many more cities. They struck homes, apartment buildings, shopping centres and metros. A maternity hospital and a regional oncology centre have been damaged. In short, civilian infrastructure.
A 23-year-old man has appeared in court charged with the murder of Chris Marriott, who was hit by a car in Sheffield. The father of two was with his family when he tried to help a woman lying unconscious in the street on Wednesday. He was killed when a car ploughed into a small crowd. 23-year-old Hassan Yangur is also facing 5 counts of attempted murder. He's due to appear at Sheffield Crown Court on Tuesday. Shameless cronyism and a slap in the face to working people. Just 2 criticisms of Liz Truss's resignation honours list. Britain's shortest-serving Prime Minister has handed out 11 peerages to political allies, Tory donors and former aides, which amounts to around 1 for every 4 days in office. Labour says honours should be for public service, not rewarding Tory failure. Liz Truss resigned last October after 49 days amid economic turmoil sparked by her so-called mini-budget. Meanwhile, Dame Shirley Bassey has been given the highest award in the King's new honours list. The legendary singer is the 64th living member of the Order of the Companions of Honour in recognition of her services to music. It's limited to 65 members at any one time. Dame Shirley has sold 135 million records worldwide. Glastonbury Festival founder Michael Eavis and Wetherspoon's boss Tim Martin are among those knighted. And there are damehoods for author Gilly Cooper and MP Siobhan McDonough. And life coaches and running clubs will be recommended to those on long-term sick leave to get people back to work. Doctors, employers and job centres will be encouraged to suggest therapeutic recreation, such as gardening or cooking clubs, in an effort to reduce the number of people signed off work. A pilot scheme called Work Well will see the concept tested in 15 areas before it's expanded nationally. This is GB News across the UK on TV, in your car, on your digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. Now let's return to Nana.
Thank you, Sophia. It's fast approaching 5 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. We are the People's Channel. I'm Nana Akua. Well, it's all about the honours today, and there were, in my view, some well-deserved. You had Dame Shirley Bassey, who becomes a Companion of the Order. She's now the 64th living member of the Order. The brilliant Gilly Cooper, I love her, she becomes a Dame for her services to literature and charity. I can remember being addicted to her books at school. Sir Ridley Scott becomes a Knight Grand Cross, and Mary Earps, who's cleaning up this year, she also gets an honour. But much of the awards appear to be rewards for failure. Because on the list, the ex-Passport Office boss Abby Tierney, who carried on working partly from home despite a 700,000 processing backlog, she's been given a Companion of the Order of the Bath, the second highest honour to damehood. She was recognised for public service despite presiding over failure, which meant that thousands had holiday plans ruined. She was also responsible for processing asylum applications, which at the time had an over 100,000 backlog. And, of course, she was in charge of stopping the boats. Well, that's gone well. She admitted to a Commons committee that 96% of asylum applications from arrivals in 2021 were still awaiting a decision. Congratulations to her. Can I be on the list? Those giving out honours include Liz Truss, who was defenestrated by her party within 49 days. I mean, there are a lot of people arguing whether she should be giving anything out. She originally had 14 people on her list, which basically works out an honour for every 3.5 days of her premiership, but only 11 were accepted. Some argue that Tony Blair and Gordon Brown did not have a resignation to honours list, so why should she? They served for considerably longer, but then, in Tony Blair's case, he had only just got over the cash for honours, so it probably wouldn't have been a good look. The way I see it is Liz Truss was extracted from her party in a very unsavoury manner. She was humiliated because they wanted Sunak. She was blamed for the market crash and the subsequent mortgage increases. The latter, any good economist would have told you, needed to happen anyway. And her policies, whilst they may have been presented in an incorrect manner, are now being pursued by her party. Many argue that she was actually right. Even her focus on childcare was being adopted by Labour. Liz gave out honours to her loyalists like Matthew Elliott, the former chief executive for Vote Leave, Alec Shelbrooke MP, who was knighted. He served as her junior defence minister, and her close friend Jackie Doyle-Prince, the MP for Thurrock, also got an honour. On recommendation to the King by Rishi, Sajid Javid will be knighted. Why? On the revolving carousel of jobs, he held 6 cabinet roles, and some would argue was the linchpin, because as soon as he resigned under the Boris leadership, Rishi followed and the whole thing fell apart. Then, on Labour's side, Dame Margaret Beckett becomes a Dame Grand Cross, whatever that means, after serving 40 years. But she was the one that nominated Jeremy Corbyn as party leader, which even she describes as the worst mistake of her life. We forgive her, but as a result, Boris Johnson got an 80-seat majority. Why give her another honour? And outside politics, Aviva boss Amanda Blank for her services to business, gender, equality and net zero. She ensures that shortlists aren't full of white men. Great work if you can get it, but what happened to the meritocracy, and what exactly does she do for the net zero bit? What a joke. Look, If they want to carry on with these honours, which I think on balance are a great thing, but if they want it to carry on or have some sort of credibility, I think it needs a reboot, because many on the list are being rewarded for their abject failure. So before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today. For the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is our police force beyond repair? Now, a damning watchdog report found that more than a half of the police are failing to investigate crimes properly. But when celebrity footballer Jack Grealish gets burgled, the police rush to his aid in a matter of moments. We'll be discussing then at 4:50, it's Royal Roundup time. Royal biographer Angela Levin will be here in the studio to give us the latest from behind the palace walls. On the menu, why did King Charles get nearly 8 million viewers on Christmas Day? And with Fergie's return to the royal family, could Harry and Meghan be next? All that and loads more. Then stay tuned at 5. It's this week's Difficult Conversation. Howard Cox and anti-ULEZ campaigners will be live in the studio as Sadiq Khan's ULEZ expansions come under fire again and cameras continue to be vandalised across the country. We'll be hearing from an anti-ULEZ campaigner who was hit by a mobile camera van. That's coming up in the next hour. Tell me what you think on everything we're discussing. Email gbviews@gbnews.com or tweet me at gbnews. Right, it's just gone 9 minutes after 4 o'clock. Right, let's get started. Let's welcome again to my panel broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly, and also broadcaster and author Christine Hamilton. Hello.
Hello.
Hey, you two, what are you doing here? You're not here on a Saturday. Get out.
I'm here on Saturday because I wanted tomorrow off because I'm going to a jolly good party tomorrow night.
You're always partying. This woman,
no, I'm not.
She never stops partying.
Rubbish.
And drinking.
And it's great to be here on drinking, the Saturday. Yes. Partying, no. Thank you very much indeed. And you cut it fine, didn't you? Got it during the news at 4 o'clock. Don't mention trains to me. And there was a blockage on the line. So instead of setting out going east, which is what I have to do from where I live to here, we started off going west on a single-track line. This is the main... I don't go there. I didn't think I'd get here for at least another half an hour, but I made it.
But you're here, Christine.
I'm here,
Thank
yes,
goodness.
and I'm better off than the poor guy who was apparently hit by a train.
Oh, God, no, that's bad.
Something like, I think so, I'm not sure.
Oh, poor thing. Oh, dear, that's awful. Right, well, on that terrible note...
I know.
Let's talk about the honours list. I'm going to start with you. Let's start with Danny.
Always going to be controversial whenever politicians are nominated. Listen, it's a prime ministerial convention. She was here for 40-odd days. And then... dark forces forced her out and all of that. So
do you believe that? Do you think she was pushed out?
Yeah, I think...
it wasn't very nice,
monologue.
was it?
I think Rishi Sunak was the prodigal son that needed to come home, needed to be in charge, and she was the fall guy. So anyway, back to convention, prime ministerial convention. Now she nominated, 14, 15, 11 were accepted. Boris Johnson, who had a much longer term at the helm, a tenure, he nominated 40-odd. So I don't begrudge Liz Truss nominating.
No.
And this is always... Some critics will always say it's incestuous, and opponents of Brexit will always say, oh, no, he's been nominated. He was the mastermind, the architect, he was the man in charge of vote leave and everything. People need to get over the pathological hatred of people who voted for Brexit. And they just need to sort of detach themselves emotionally, because it's not good for their mental health. And they just need to say, OK, at this time of year, politicians incestuously will nominate people I don't like, and I need to just get on with my life and get over it. It's only going to be in the news for 3 or 4 days.
But there are rewards for being nominated, so you'll sit in the House of Lords, you'll take money, over £300 a day when you're there.
It depends what you're awarded with, though, doesn't it? Some people may get a lordship or the
peerage.
Peerage, OK. So look at Tony Blair, for example. We need to look at... Everyone has a blemish record. OK, Tony Blair, who was knighted in, when was it, 2021?
Who knows? Who cares?
OK, but who cares, exactly. His biggest achievements was peace in Northern Ireland, the minimum wage, rights for LGBT, equal rights when it came to marriage, things like that. And his biggest, I think, terrible things would be Afghanistan and Iraq. Yeah, I mean, the second invasion of Iraq, of course, 1991 had nothing to do with him. So everyone has an unblemished, or a blemished record, I should say, and I think we need to look at the bigger picture when it comes to political appointments.
Christine Hamilton.
Well, I think let's look down the scale, shall we? The people at the bottom of the heap, the lollipop ladies, etc., etc., the real hard-working backbone of this country who get minor awards.
I wouldn't want to do away with that at all. And as for Liz Truss, there's so many things to unpick here. As for Liz Truss, I mean, Prime Ministers have been handing out awards. Lloyd George sold them like sweets, for heaven's sake. David Cameron gave one to his family's hairdresser, for goodness sake. So Liz Truss... I think this was Liz Truss saying, I'm going to get my own back. You got rid of me. I don't think I should have been got rid of. A lot of people now say that what I was pushing forward was right. I'm jolly well going to do it. I'm entitled to do it. I was the Prime Minister. I'm going to put them forward. She put forward, for example, David Hills, who is her association chairman. He will have done a hell of a lot for her. Why shouldn't she put him? Not for she's not got a peerage, she's just got an honour of some sort. Why not? I think she's perfectly entitled to. I pitied, for example, one of the ones who didn't get through was Mark Littlewood, who was the head of the IEA, and I think he would have been a wonderful addition to the House of Lords. There was so much dead wood in that place. I mean, if we can replace some of the rubbish that's there, but as one of you said, they are there for life. And if they turn up, they get 300 or 350 a day. So I don't blame Liz Truss at all. I think good for her. You mentioned Sajid Javid. I don't have any time for him at all, but he was the very first British Asian to hold a great office of state. He was Home Secretary.
Yeah, but so what?
He was.
But so what?
But this is the system.
Yeah, but so what? You know, what's that got to do with it?
None of us like awards being given to people that we don't approve of or we don't like, but that is the system. And Danny's right. We just have to sit back.
You do sit back.
You can't like them all. I don't see anything wrong with Sajid Javid getting an award.
But the whole thing then resulted in Rishi Sunak went and then Boris Johnson was, taken out, and I just
wait for.
They haven't done a good job. I just find that really, I think the bigger honours should be given to more of the general public. I don't begrudge Liz Truss at all. I don't like the way she was treated. I think it was disgusting. And as a member of the public watching that, I thought they were awful to her. She had some good ideas. She maybe needed some training on how to deliver things, and they could have been more helpful. They just didn't want her.
They didn't want her. The establishment didn't.
They didn't want her.
They wanted their boy Rishi, and by goodness,
he had his son block ready.
Just to defend Sajid Javid, he would be really annoyed at the implication that the only reason he was given this New Year's was because he was Asian.
I didn't say because he was Asian.
No, because he was the first Asian.
He was the first Asian member of the cabinet.
But why is that significant, though?
Well, of course it's significant. It's a milestone. Diane Abbott was the first black member of Parliament.
But I don't think you get an award for that.
But it is a milestone that why not recognise?
I know, but he's not being recognised for being the first Asian in the cabinet. He's being recognised for the work he's done. It just so happens to be that he may be. That's my point.
I agree with the positioning in that. Yeah, I agree with that positioning as well.
I think I don't know what he's got. Has he gone to the Lords?
Oh, he's got to be knighted, actually.
He'd be knighted. Well, I think that's fair. Nothing goes with being knighted. If you want to call yourself a bauble, sir, or lady, or whatever, you don't get a job for life. You don't get, sort of legislative
I used to
roles.
think the BBC was a job for life.
I think a lot of people in there thought that as well.
Yeah.
May I just say one? You've briefly mentioned her, Jilly Cooper, don't we?
I
adore
Jilly Cooper.
I'll tell you who will be so thrilled about that, and that one of her absolute best buddies is Queen Camilla. She will love that.
I read every single one of her books at my boarding school, and it was just like, come on, Nana, I'll be like, I'm just going to read this book.
Jolly super Jilly Cooper.
I loved her. Yeah. Who do you think? What about Nadine Dorries? She was going to get something, but she didn't in the end. She was taken off the list.
Oh, my goodness.
Do you think she deserves something? She's been in politics for almost 20 years.
What are her achievements, I wonder? What would you say her achievements?
Given the way these things are handed out, I think Nadine Dorries had a much greater... Right is the wrong word, but to be in the House of Lords than a hell of a lot of other people, some who are on this list and some who've gone in before. Yeah. So I think Nadine has some justification for feeling a bit miffed. And Boris wanted to put her in. Why shouldn't she? Liz Truss has put all these people in. I mean, this is the system we've got. Either we change it or we go with it and we say, OK, I don't approve of that one, you don't approve of that one, but this is what we've got.
It was a bureaucratic sort of error, as it were, as to why she's not in there, or I don't know what that was about.
I don't know why, but
May I just say, just whilst we're on it, if we have 10 seconds, just to indulge me, I was having lunch with my 90-year-old father yesterday. His father got the CBE. He was known as the Tin Hat Mayor. He was a firefighter and the mayor of Bootle in Liverpool, and during the Blitz he used to put his tin hat on and he used to go into burning buildings and drag people out alive. Whilst he was the mayor of Bootle, the Tin Hat Mayor, and we're very proud of Joseph Sylvester Kelly.
So he got something. That's wonderful. See, these are the sort of people that I want to get these
My
awards.
mum got the MBE for her war work at the Ministry of Defence.
See, that's
equality.
That's the sort of thing we want, not some of these politicians who...
We either change the system or we go with the fact that people we don't like, don't approve of, and whose views we don't approve of get things.
Well, they can get stuff, but it doesn't have to be some of the highest honours and things like that. But listen, if you just tuned in, what do you think? It's 18 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Coming up, it's Royal Roundup time. Andrew Levin will be here to give us the latest from behind the palace walls. Lots on the menu, including King Charles's New Year's honours list. Plus, Princess Anne makes a very rare comment about her sister-in-law, Queen Camilla. Loads more. But up next, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is our police force broken beyond repair? And I've got a poll up right now on X asking you that very question. Is our police force broken beyond repair? Send me your thoughts. Email gbviews@gbnews.com. Tell me what you think. Also, get in touch at GB News. Cast your vote now.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. The Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show, every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon if you've just tuned in. Where the hell have you been? It's fine, it's GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. It's coming up to 23 minutes after 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. Now, before the break, I was discussing the honours list. Let's see what some of you have been saying. Susan says, congrats to Tim. He deserves this honour. They missed out on Nigel again. Yeah, Nigel Farage, he could have got something. Most of these people who are honoured don't deserve it. Graham says, another farcical New Year's honours list. It should be honour people that work helping others. Police, ambulance, doctors, nurses, etc. That's exactly how I feel about it as well. I totally agree with you. And Jackie says, it's a joke that the highest honour has been given for music. Well, music is good, though, isn't it? The food of love. If music be the food of love, play on. Right, so it's 23 after 4. It's time now for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is our police force broken beyond repair? Now, a damning watchdog report found that more than half of coppers are failing to investigate crimes properly, with 22 of the 43 forces in England and Wales which were investigated being deemed inadequate or requiring improvement. So, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is our police force broken beyond repair? Well, joining me now, Justin Urquhart-Stewart, Met Detective Police Peter Blexley also joins me. Simon Harding, former Senior Investigating Officer at the Met Police, is also with me as well. I feel like I've missed someone. Norman, it's you. Yes, Norman. He was a police officer and campaigner for law and order. Well, OK, I'm going to start with you, Simon. First of all, what do you think needs to change? Because I'm imagining that your answer to this is that, well, do you think it's broken beyond repair?
I don't think it's broken beyond repair, but we were talking about this a year ago. I think in November, Suella Braverman brought it up to say that half the police forces were inadequate. But then you're starting to see, well, what we were hoping to see then was a change. So Mark Rowley came out and said all these different changes are going to come in to make it better. Investigations are going to increase. Yet we're back to the same conversation again. And I think when you strip away certain crimes which don't have forensics or CCTV or witnesses or lines of inquiry, obviously there might not be that ability to take it any further. But what we're actually seeing is cases closed where there are leads, there are CCTV, there is the ability to investigate. And I think that seems to have changed over the years and not for the good.
Yeah, but Peter, I'm going to come to you because there's been a lot of things going on, not just the fact that I think the police do need more money, but there's been corruption. I mean, there's also been continuing with lots of other problems as well. What do you believe needs to happen, and do you think it is broken? Do you think we can repair it?
By and large, British policing is in crisis. If you're unfortunate enough to be the victim of phone theft, bike theft, domestic burglary, car theft, be a shopkeeper, or the elephant in the room, fraud, and millions of people fall victim to all those crimes, then the police are an irrelevancy, because you will not get an investigation. So the police are utterly irrelevant. And then, just to add insult to injury, the police have subcontracted the investigation of those crimes back to the victims. Because when you ring it up to report it, they say, do you know who did it? You got any CCTV? They want victims to investigate their own crimes, which is why when I speak to so many people who are victims of crime and I say to them, did you report it to the police? They say, what's the point? And that is the pathetic state of British policing today.
Is it beyond repair, though, in your view?
I'd like to think not. If you are unfortunate enough to get murdered, then you will get a very well-resourced, robust, professional investigation. But, of course, by that time, it's a bit too late for you.
Or if you're Jack Grealish and a famous person, then you're fine then as well.
Yeah, and you'll get a helicopter and they'll throw all the possible resources at it that they can. But as we speak, nobody's been arrested for that crime yet, have they?
No. Right, Norman Brennan.
It can't be beyond repair. It has to be repaired. In defence of frontline police officers, they actually want to do the job that the public and the victims want them to do. In a nutshell, 13 years ago, under Theresa May, nearly 22,000 police officers were taken off the streets. That's when the criminals took over the streets. The police have never been able to get it back. And the sad reality now is that police officers throughout every force in the country can barely put out the minimum resources. They're chasing their tails. They go from 199 call to the next. They never get time to investigate. Anytime they get involved in a controversial issue, it's across social media. It makes them feel crap. It puts pressure on their chiefs to suspend them and the IOPC to actually investigate them, and they're given too many targets, Nana. They're told that women's safety is a priority, knife crime is a priority, robbery is a priority, burglary is a priority. When everything becomes a priority, nothing becomes a priority. What is a priority? Get police officers back on the streets, meet victims, talk to the public, goes into shops, investigate crime and challenge those that think they're untouchable. Because at the moment, it's the criminals that run the streets and not the police service. And that's very worrying.
Well, Justin, do you think that this is a case of maybe pumping more money into this? And if there is an element of that, why don't the government just get on with it?
It's not just money. We come down, we were talking earlier about what are the key influences that the economy has to have. And one of the key influences is confidence. And you have to have confidence to make sure you've got a rule of law backed up by enforcement, investigation and everything that goes with it. If you don't have that, then people will back away. They will not actually be involved in the community so much. They will not be involved in so many transactions, and they won't necessarily invest in the country. So it is, to me, not something which is a nice to have. It is a key element for running a proper economy, a proper society, and a successful country.
Simon, do you think that, you know, the actual police themselves, because obviously we had an issue with recruitment as well, do you think that perhaps there needs to be a better way of recruiting officers and a more inviting way of recruiting them? Because even if you do all this, it doesn't look like anyone wants to be a policeman or woman, and who would want to anyway?
Yeah, and it's not just recruitment, and I agree with that. I mean, I think there is a money issue. I think the wages aren't necessarily where they should be now for that kind of job. But I think one of the biggest problems we're facing is retention. And that's those officers there in that bracket of, say, 8 to 15 or 20 years who feel so disillusioned, and quite rightly, with the kind of rhetoric that we're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, this is a continual bombardment. And the rhetoric, in my belief, the rhetoric has to change. You know, the way that Norman's talking is quite right. You know, it's not broken. It's just there are systems and processes that people have put in place in the police, you know, and certainly my experience at the Met Police, when I only retired 2 years ago, you know, those systems and processes put a wall between, you know, victims and those investigators, those that want to do that job, who are tirelessly working, and not just on homicide, but on other cases as well. They want to be involved, but they're not being allowed to do that. There's not enough of them. The retention is not concentrated on, and nor is recruitment.
But you said you
We need 20,000 more.
Didn't resign, I retired.
You retired. Oh, I see. You retired. I see. Sorry, who was speaking there? Was that Norman?
It's Norman. I agree with the last comments. It's absolutely right. We've re-recruited 20,000. It's a bit like a burglar taking all of your property and over 12 years gives you it all back. The loss is felt every day for when you've lost that. 20,000 officers have been recruited. Over 4,500 have already resigned. We haven't got enough officers to cope. And unless we recruit 20,000 more police officers, and we've lost the experienced ones, we need to get 2,000 or 3,000 of them back, reopen training schools, and when the public are concerned on who we're actually recruiting, let's make sure that the reference checks are done from the beginning, that the people are interviewed and they're sent to police training schools, because that's 3 steps where you can weed out those that should never be in the job and more likely to be a threat to the police service and the public than any good. If we go back to basics, the nine principles of Sir Robert Peel: get on the streets, get back the public confidence, reassure them, tell the criminals that we are about, and make sure that the courts back us out. Because at the moment, the whole criminal justice system is not fit for purpose. And at this moment in time, I see 2024 being one of the worst years for law and order since policing begun. And if you don't believe me, I'm sure most of your panel there will agree. And I've been in law and order from policing for 45 years. I've got a bit of an idea what I'm talking about. And by golly, we're in dangerous times.
Peter, is he right?
No, a lot of what Norman says does carry some merit. But what's got to be remembered here is the clowns, the fools, the overly university-educated people that have been in charge of policing for the last generation. And whilst we've been talking about the New Year's honours list today, let's just take a little peek at that, if we may. Martin Hewitt, who just stood down as the chief of the National Police Chiefs Council, got a CBE today to go along with his Queen's Police Medal that he got some years ago. This is the calibre of people we're talking about. Just a few years ago, when he's Assistant Commissioner of the Met, he said, of course we are talking here about victims of crime, and crime is a minority percentage of the activity we are undertaking. Minority activity, crime. You see, this is the rot of police leadership. And also today, Jason Davis, Assistant Chief Constable of South Wales Police, he gets a gong when his own Chief Constable admits that his police service is institutionally racist. It goes on. Karen Finlay, she gets a gong today. She's been in charge of public order policing at the Met for the last couple of years. Anybody want to talk about Just Stop Oil and the Palestine protests?
Listen,
and so it goes on, rewarding failure.
Well, that's what I said about the honestness. Listen, we could talk about this for a long time, and there's still more to discuss in the debate, because that will follow. Justin, thank you so much. Simon, Peter, and also Norman, thank you so much for your thoughts. Crikey, so what do you think? GBviews@gbnews.com. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. Coming up, we'll continue with the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, is our police force broken beyond repair? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, Danny and Christine. But first, let's get your latest news with Sophia.
Thank you, Nana. It's 4:33. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB newsroom. Thousands of people's New Year's plans have been thrown into chaos after Eurostar cancelled all trains to and from London. The company apologised after what it said was unprecedented flooding in a number of tunnels, including under the Thames. Up to 35,000 passengers have been affected, with many left stranded at London's St Pancras station. Some have taken to social media to vent their frustrations, saying they were only told about the cancellations at 8 o'clock this morning. And forecasters are warning people to take care ahead of New Year celebrations. Strong winds are expected, with a small chance of tornadoes in England and Wales. Heavy rain is predicted in many parts of the country, with parts of Scotland likely to see significant levels of snow. The Met Office says yellow alerts are in place until 3 a.m. tomorrow. Police may be facing renewed scrutiny over the huge amount of crimes that haven't been solved this year. New figures reveal there were 4.7 million unsolved crimes in 2023. That's almost 86% of those reported. 1.7 million were of a violent nature, with a further million down to criminal damage or arson. In many cases, police failed to find a suspect. Labour says the Conservatives' record on solving crimes is disgraceful and has accused the government of letting criminals off and victims down. And shameless cronyism and a slap in the face to working people, just two criticisms of Liz Truss's resignation honours list. Britain's shortest-serving Prime Minister has handed out 11 peerages to political allies, Tory donors and former aides, which amounts to around one for every 4 days in office. Labour says honours should be for public service, not rewarding Tory failure. Liz Truss resigned last October after 49 days amid economic turmoil sparked by her so-called mini-budget. And you can get more on all those stories by visiting our website at gbnews.com. Now it's back to Nana.
Thank you, Sophia. It's just coming up to 36 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. Coming up, Royal Roundup time. Royal biographer Angela Leppin will be live in the studio with the latest from behind the palace walls. On the menu, King Charles's popularity to Princess Anne and Queen Camilla's relationship. But up next, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is our police force broken beyond repair? I've got a poll up right now on X asking you that very question. Send me your thoughts. Email gbviews@gbnews.com or tweet me at GB News. Cast your vote now.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
I've just shown Danny Kelly a picture of me in a black and white photo, and he goes, "You're looking very dark in there." I'm like, "It's black and white." Honestly, listen, if you just tuned in, sorry about that. 41 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News, honestly. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. And, of course, loads of you getting in touch with regard to the Great British debate. We're going to continue with that this hour. And I'm asking, is our police force broken beyond repair? A damning watchdog report found that more than half of coppers are failing to investigate crimes properly. So for the Great British debate, unless, of course, you're Jack Grealish. So for the Great British debate this hour, I'm asking, is our police force broken beyond repair? Well, joining me in my panel, broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly and author and broadcaster Christine Hamilton. Christine, I'm going to start with you, and I'm going to say that I do feel very sorry for the police and the amount of sort of energy that's often negatively directed towards them.
Oh, and nobody has a good word to say about the police, do they, basically? I was very interested in that panel debate. I mean, they had 4 pretty strong experts for various reasons, and I thought Peter Blexley's rant at the end was wonderful about individual police officers who'd got gongs and the reasons why they shouldn't have had them. But as I understand it, take the Met, a third of the Metropolitan Police now have less than 4 years' experience because there's been, one of the guys on the panel talked about it, there's been such a departure of older, experienced police officers, the people who possibly grew up starting on the beat, some of the people at the top, instead of just going in at some sort of graduate level, which I don't think is right. You need people, they come in at a graduate level, they need to go down on the beat for a bit, because there aren't any bobbies on the beat, are there? The biggest deterrent, in my view, for people committing a crime, obviously a lot of people would never commit a crime. There's not a big swathe of people, of let's say of us, people, who the deterrent is getting caught. And if they think they're going to get caught, they won't do it. And then the second biggest deterrent is the punishment for getting caught. Nowadays, people know that they are not going to get caught, so it doesn't matter what the punishment is.
Or if
can't
they
go
do,
to
they're
prison
trying to
anyway.
empty the prisons, aren't they? So they don't want you in there.
I mean, there's been a huge avalanche. It's the wrong way around. And, you know, the opposite of an avalanche, uphill rise in the number of shoplifters because people know that they're going to get away with it. The police aren't interested in shoplifters. So I think, it's incredibly difficult. But what I want to know is all these police forces in special measures, including our own in Wiltshire, has any chief constable been sacked yet?
Well, if they sack
are
them,
in charge.
But I think the problem is who goes in their place and who will take the job, Danny?
But that's no reason for keeping people because there isn't automatically someone to take their job.
I'm going to defer. I'm going to defer to those three ex-coppers. They know more about policing than I will ever know about policing. It was most disheartening, though, to hear Norman Brennan, whose career I've followed and I've admired over the years, and he's been in the policing arena for like 30 or 40 years, I think he said. And at one point, the intimation was that the Met Police don't have control of the streets. And I would like to think that that was an exaggeration made at a highly emotive time for Mr Brennan, because I would like to think that the police do have control of the streets, but there are occasions when spontaneous criminality breaks out that the cops struggle to contain. And I think that's a context that needs clarification. You know, the old Bill haven't lost control of the streets. You know, otherwise we'd be living in complete chaos.
Well, are we not living in chaos? Do you not think we are?
No, Norman said that the police aren't in control of the streets. So the inference there is that the criminals have control of the streets.
Well, that's what he's saying. Yeah,
That's what he was saying.
He's right, though, isn't he?
But
no, I don't think the police. Sorry, I don't think the criminals have control of the streets. If there's a crime, then we need to look at why the police can't get there and investigate. That's two separate
Yeah, but they're
things.
not. But OK, so only 6% of crimes are actually being punished. So that means 94%
investigated
of them...
or
that's
gone
only
to court.
Actually punished. Actually punished.
So convicted.
So, yeah, so actually 6% of crimes being punished.
OK, well, let me add some regional
how do we go with
context
that?
then, because they're Met Police officers, and these are all South East. You know, I've come from Warwickshire, and I would like to think, and I can only speak as a layman in Warwickshire, and I wouldn't say that Warwickshire Police have lost control of the streets. OK, so let's look at London, and let's think outside of the M25 corridor for once, because GB viewers come from all across the country.
Yeah, but...
And I would like to say that Warwickshire residents would have confidence in the old Bill landing at 3 in the morning. Let you quoted Jack Grealish. Jack Grealish, multimillionaire, 10 people in the house, £1 million worth of jewellery stolen, a robbery in progress. And that's why the old Bill landed, mob-handed, because they have a panic room, they have a safe room. From the safe room, the 10 family members called Plod and said, get here quickly because there are robbers in the house. If that happened to me and my wife in Warwickshire, if we had a safe room, I can guarantee you Warwickshire old Bill would land mob-handed as well. You don't have to be a multimillionaire footballer.
I don't know about that.
It isn't just...
I don't know about that.
Well, I think, surely, what Danny's saying is it isn't just because he's wealthy.
No.
It's because his wealth enabled him to have this safe room, etc.
Exactly.
So, yes, but also... it's a product of his wealth, but they weren't there just because, oh, my goodness, he's wealthy, we must get
The old Bill never landed. When they realised it was Jack Grealish and Cheshire Police said, oh, my God, Grealish, let's get them mob-handed, I can guarantee you, if I called the old Bill at 4 in the morning in Warwickshire, my wife and I have a burglary in progress, a robbery in progress, they would land mob-handed.
They'll say who? Danny Kelly. Oh,
ex-BBC.
Is he mentioned the BBC? That might help you out.
I want to say, and I hope I'm not alone in this amongst viewers, I don't know who Jack Grealish is.
Well, I didn't. He's a footballer, but, you know...
I guessed he was a footballer.
I can't be bothered with football, actually. But this shows nothing with you and your views. I just think they get paid too much. Let's welcome our great British voices onto their show.
Footballers or police?
No, footballers. Their opportunity to be on the show. Where's the map gone? The map's gone again. Tell us what they think about the topics we're discussing. All right, then, Lee Harris in Bristol. All right. What do you think? Is our police force broken beyond repair?
I don't think they are broken beyond repair, but, you know, as this recent report clearly shows, the situation is appalling, and it helps explain why public confidence is shot to bits. The police have lost control. I do agree with what Norma was saying. And the public now expect crimes not to be solved. I was shocked but not surprised to read that more than half of the police forces are failing to investigate crime properly. More and more criminals are not being caught, and victims are definitely not getting the justice they deserve. But just to be clear, I have a huge amount of respect for our police force. They do an incredibly difficult job, but I've definitely lost faith in them in recent years. But I also think that this can be fixed, and it needs to start at the top. It's the leadership and the strategy that needs urgent reform. I personally believe that the police have lost their way. It's not just these appalling figures. People were already losing faith in the police to uphold the law fairly. We all saw the Met's two-tier policing when responding to the perpetual anti-Israel hate marches. They've become increasingly political. And Suella Braverman was spot on when she said that woke police are damaging trust. And just to finish on this, Norman was also right when he said that the police need to go back to basics. This is genuinely the answer to it. We need traditional policing that upholds the law without fear or favour, not this political, reactive, light touch, woke, two-tier selective policing that we have now. It leads to an erosion of trust and a culture of impunity and a breakdown of law and order.
Well, we need police stations, I think. They need to take out the rainbow laces, get rid of the pride flags and all the other stuff, all this nonsense they're doing, and just get stuck in.
You're absolutely right.
You know, and stop policing non-crime, because it's not a crime. Non-crime is the clue. Lee Harris, thank you so much. Happy New Year to you as well, because I won't see you tomorrow. That's the lovely Lee Harris. He's been a great British voice, hasn't he? This is GB News Live on TV, online and on Difficult Conversations and on digital radio. Listen, stay with me, because coming up, Difficult Conversations time. It's weird because I'm struggling to say that now. Difficult Conversations is actually difficult to say. We'll be discussing the ULEZ cameras with the enforcement impacting hundreds across the country. We'll be chatting live, but first let's get some weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. I'm Craig Snell. Well, looking ahead to New Year's Eve, for many of us, really, we're going to see a mixture of sunny spells and heavy showers. Still quite windy, and that's all courtesy of this area low pressure, which is only going to slowly move across the country as we go through this weekend. Note the tightly packed isobars, especially across the south, so some strong and gusty winds, especially as we go through the course of today and tonight. As we go into the evening, this band of heavy and squally rain will spread its way eastwards. Behind it, a mixture of clear spells and scattered showers. That rain quite persistent later on in the night across Shetland and Orkney. But for many, temperatures still above freezing. Could just see a touch of frost across Scotland, where we still will see a little bit of sleet and snow. Into New Year's Eve itself, generally a mixture of sunny spells and scattered showers. Showers mainly focused across the west initially before transferring their way eastwards during the course of the day. Some heavy, possibly thundery showers too. And note across Shetland and Orkney that rain continuing to persist. Best of the conditions as we see out 2023 looks likely to be across the far north of Scotland. New Year's Day itself, for many southern areas, actually a much better day to come. Some sunshine here, good opportunity to get out and about. Further north, continuation of the sunshine and showers theme, and that continues as we go through the first days of the new year.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. The Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, 54 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now, there's always something going on in the royal household, and this week has been no different. And on the menu, Christmas is always busy for the royals, but this year's festivities were particularly notable for one reason. A lot of people returned, like Fergie. Right, anyway, so joining me to discuss is Angela Levin, royal biographer Angela Levin. Angela, talk me through what's been going on.
Talk you through. I think you've got to see it as a year, just coming to an end. And we've had two nasty things at the beginning, at the end. There was Spare at the beginning, where Harry was full of nastiness and unkindness and lies. And then it was Endgame by Scobie, which was also exactly the same. So you see a family who's had to cope with those two things, which is very, very difficult indeed. However, when you saw them walk to church, what you saw was a really warm, happy family. You know, Princess Charlotte talking to Maya, who is Mike Tyndall's daughter. She's 9, she's 8. And you saw everybody was very relaxed, smiling, laughing. And Fergie was there for the first time in 32 years, largely due to Meghan, largely due to Camilla, I should say, because she doesn't bear a grudge to someone. And she felt that, you know, that she's been a marvellous mother. She's gone through her cancer operation and she deserves to come back again. Last year they tried her just with the lunch, and this year it was the service and the lunch. And I think that's very good. She is being a very good mother. Her children adore her for over 20 years because the Duke of Edinburgh couldn't bear her anywhere near. The Queen liked her. They had quiet chats, secret chats, but the Duke of Edinburgh didn't. So for 22 years, her children would go for the Christmas lunch and she would rent a little place somewhere nearby. It was sad. So now that's...
I think it's sort of slightly funny. It was probably like, don't bring that woman anywhere near me. I can't bear that woman.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, he's very outspoken about her. And that goes back to the sucking the toes thing.
Oh, God, yeah. What was her name? Paul Bryant? Or wasn't...
And that wasn't...
Oh, that was terrible.
That was really the basis of it. But you saw they were all very, very relaxed with each other. And Princess Anne too, who said in the documentary the next day that she was absolutely astounded that Camilla has become such a brilliant queen without having the sort of experience that in her life that she has managed to do it so well, and the difference it's made to the king has been absolutely enormous. Now those two, Princess Anne wouldn't speak to Camilla when she first got there, not because they'd had an affair with the same man, but because that's Parker Bowles, but because she just felt it was all wrong and she wasn't suitable. And gradually they got together. They've got a lot in common with horses and dogs and all that, and now they're very good friends. And you see that people in families can get over very, very hard times. And I think what Harry and Meghan has put them through has proven that actually if you're dignified, you behave well and you move on, you can get over it, although there can be obviously some pain left. Whereas if you keep on looking back and you won't be prepared to compromise or anything at all, it doesn't work and you're really angry and jealous and, you know, you feel like victims. So it's very interesting that that's a turnaround for the year, and it got terrific number of people watching it, that and the documentary the next day.
I didn't see that. I'm going to have to go and check that out.
It was wonderful. It's extremely moving. And Princess Anne gives an interview, which she rarely does, but she obviously wanted to say this about Camilla, which is, I think, very nice. And it worked. It worked extremely well. And I think people who have criticised the king for saying he's lazy, he's getting tired, it's getting run out, the royal family doesn't work anymore. But actually, whenever he goes anywhere, whether it's Germany or France, or he's just there in London, people really like him hugely, and there's an awful lot of follow-up. And a lot of the people who were standing by on the way to the church got there at 4 a.m. so that they would be able to see them. So this was like the coronation again.
So briefly, the honours list as well. Now, that's come out as well, hasn't it?
The honours list has come out with the little boy, Tony Hudgell, who is only 9. He's the youngest ever to have won an award. And this was because his parents actually were very violent against him.
I remember that
to have
story.
2 legs
Poor things.
cut off. And he wants to make sure that other children don't have the same thing. And he's made over £1 million to help look after other children who've had a very bad time. Amazing little boy, and wonderful parents that he's adopted.
Well, that's what the honours list should be all about, instead of some of the politicians that are on there.
Yes.
Angela, sorry about that. Angela Levin, thank you very much. Royal biographer Angela Levin.
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you. She's also Prince Harry's biographer. Yes, she wrote his book. But today I've been asking, are the police broken beyond repair? Lots of you have been getting in touch with your thoughts. We'll be going through some of those emails in just a moment's time. But this is GB News, live on TV, online and digital radio. More to come in the next hour. Hello, this is GB News live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Still to come, my difficult conversation where I'll be talking to Howard Cox and a lady called Claire discussing the ULEZ cameras. Plus, in the Great British Debate this hour, we'll be talking about New Year's Eve. And for goodness sake, is it all turning into a bit of a mess? Stay tuned, that's on the way. But first, let's get your latest news with Sophia.
Good afternoon, it's 5 o'clock. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB newsroom. Thousands of people's New Year's plans have been thrown into chaos after Eurostar cancelled all trains to and from London. The company apologised after what it said was unprecedented flooding in a number of tunnels, including under the Thames. Up to 35,000 passengers have been affected, with many left stranded at London's St Pancras station. Some have taken to social media to vent their frustrations, saying they were only told of the cancellations at 8 o'clock this morning. And forecasters are warning people to take care ahead of New Year celebrations. Heavy rain and strong winds are expected in many parts of the country, with parts of Scotland likely to see significant levels of snow. The Met Office says yellow alerts are in place until 3 a.m. tomorrow. Ukraine has struck a series of targets in Russia, killing 14 people and injuring many more. It comes after Russia carried out its most devastating air attack since the invasion began. Ukraine says the brutality of the strikes, which killed 31 people, shows there can be no talk of a truce with Moscow. Russia requested a meeting of the United Nations Security Council today, despite most members condemning Russia's actions at an emergency gathering last night. The UK's representative, Barbara Woodward, says Russia is deliberately targeting civilians.
These missiles were aimed at population centres across Ukraine, at Kyiv, Lviv, Dnipro, Odessa, Kharkiv, Kamytsky and many more cities. They struck homes, apartment buildings, shopping centres and metros. A maternity hospital and a regional oncology centre have been damaged. In short, civilian infrastructure.
A murder investigation has been launched after a 29-year-old man was stabbed in northwest London. Emergency crews were called to the scene at the Abbey Estate near St John's Wood just after 7:30 on Friday evening. The victim, who hasn't been named, was taken to hospital, but he later died. A cordon is in place near the famous Abbey Road crossing while detectives investigate. No arrests have yet been made. Police may be facing renewed scrutiny over the huge amount of crimes that haven't been solved this year. New figures reveal there were 4.7 million unsolved crimes in 2023. That's almost 86% of those reported. 1.7 million were of a violent nature, with a further million down to criminal damage or arson. In many cases, police failed to find a suspect. Labour says the Conservatives' record on solving crimes is disgraceful and has accused the government of letting criminals off and victims down. A 23-year-old man has appeared in court charged with the murder of Chris Marriott, who was hit by a car in Sheffield. The father of two was with his family when he tried to help a woman lying unconscious in the street on Wednesday. He was killed when a car ploughed into a crowd of people. 23-year-old Hassan Yangur is also facing 5 counts of attempted murder. He's due to appear at Sheffield Crown Court on Tuesday. Shameless cronyism and a slap in the face to working people. Just 2 criticisms of Liz Truss's resignation honours list. Britain's shortest-serving Prime Minister has handed out 11 peerages to political allies, Tory donors and former aides, which amounts to around 1 for every 4 days in office. Labour says honours should be for public service, not rewarding Tory failure. Liz Truss resigned last October after 49 days amid economic turmoil sparked by a so-called mini-budget. Meanwhile, Dame Shirley Bassey has been given the highest award in the King's New Year Honours list. The legendary singer is the 64th living member of the Order of the Companions of Honour in recognition of her service to music. It's limited to 65 members at any one time. Dame Shirley has sold 135 million records worldwide. Glastonbury Festival founder Michael Levis and Wetherspoon's boss Tim Martin are among those knighted, and there are damehoods for Gilly Cooper and MP Siobhan McDonough. This is GB News across the UK, on TV, in your car, on your digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. Now it's back to Nana.
Thank you, Sophia. It's just fast approaching 6 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today, it's broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly and author and broadcaster Christine Hamilton. Still to come, my difficult conversation today is on all things ULEZ, or ULEZ. I'll be hearing from an anti-ULEZ protester who's been left on, one of her colleagues has been left on crutches after being hit by a mobile mobile camera van, and also Howard Cox will be live in the studio. Then our pubs, restaurants and bars are still struggling to recover from COVID. The cost of living crisis is still rumbling on. There's chaos on our transport links as staff shortages threaten travel disruption over the next few days. So in the Great British Debate this hour, we'll be discussing that as ever. Email me, gbviews@gbnews.com, or tweet me at gbnews. So, before we get stuck into our difficult conversation today, I've been asking, is our police force beyond repair? Lots of you have been getting in touch with your views. James says, if you were a police officer, would you put your life on the line when villains get a community order for almost any crime committed? No, I wouldn't. And actually, I wouldn't be a police officer because the lack of support as well, it's terrible. Rob says, they're not broken, but in need of repair. Most ordinary policemen and women work hard and join for the right reasons. Well, I've got a poll up right now on Twitter. I'm asking you that question throughout the show. Keep your thoughts coming, gbviews@gbnews.com or at gbnews. But now, of course, it is time for this week's difficult conversation. Sadiq Khan faces new ULEZ headaches as European drivers launch legal challenges over £6.5 million worth of fines. Transport for London could be forced to pay back millions of pounds in ULEZ fines after a European company launched legal action in defence of drivers. And with thousands across the country objecting to the enforcements, why do we have to have them at all? Isn't it just wasting money? So I'm joined now in the studio by Howard Cox, founder of Fair Fuel UK, and Claire Dyer, an anti-ULEZ protester. So I'm going to start with you, Howard Cox. You,
me.
You two, you so like you got dressed in the same room. She's the reverse of you, literally. But I'll start with you, Howard. So there is a lot of, there seems to be a lot of backlash for these ULEZ cameras, but there doesn't appear to be any sign of Sadiq Khan retracting or withdrawing from this policy.
Absolutely, and as you know, I'm standing for London Mayor as well, and one of the reasons why I'm standing is to get rid of this dishonest mayor. He's hit new heights of dishonesty, and he's using taxpayers' money to employ thugs, and I mean they are thugs.
Well, no, he would say that he's trying to deal with air pollution, and that's what he has said. And of course, you have people like Rosamund Kizidebra, who has been talking about how her child died and was the first person to have air pollution on the certificate. So he would say that actually he's trying to save London in terms of the environment and protect Londoners.
That's a sad case, but she was already very ill. I'm not going to actually talk about that case because he's saying there are 4,000 of that type of cases. There aren't. There are 3,999 that haven't died from air pollution. The thing is, though, he's using tactics to get through his idealism of a ULEZ which is actually proven not to actually improve air quality. It's purely a cash grab. And now,
where have we seen that it doesn't help the air quality? I mean, I'm only challenging you, but I do know that.
No, yes, I know. Obviously, the whole point, the centre of London recently came out with some Hans Christian Andersen type data, which I spoke to Martin Daubney yesterday on GB News, and fundamentally he's actually using their own data. It was actually not peer reviewed, and what it says is there's some massive reduction in NOx, a massive reduction in particulate matter. Well, we challenge that. The actual company that actually produced that data is very questionable what they're doing, and it wasn't peer reviewed. The thing is, even the TfL, Imperial College, Queen Mary's Hospital have proven that the ULEZ extension will not improve air quality in any demonstrable way whatsoever.
He wanted them to change the wording, didn't he?
Exactly.
Report, yes.
That was the Deputy Mayor who said that. And fundamentally, Nana, what's happening at the moment, he's using all tactics to try and get ULEZ through, and one of them is actually these cameras, these detection cameras, these vans, are being protested against lawfully by law-abiding but frustrated people, just putting a placard in front of the camera. But to stop them doing that, he's employing, and I'm sorry, I'm going to use it again, thugs.
Well, I mean, look, I mean, there are images of these people, and some of them, so their faces are covered, some of them not showing their badges, so I can see what the justification is for using that. I mean, here is somebody who is dressed to protect the cameras. Now, if I saw somebody like that in the street, I would be terrified. And some of them aren't showing their badges visibly as well. It is a little, I mean, they might argue that it's cold and they're covering their, but they are covering their faces, and it does seem menacing. Now, Claire, I know that you have experience of what's been going on around these particular cameras and so on and so forth. Talk to me about your experience.
Well, I would say that the security have been on the streets pretty much from day one. So when TfL have said that they were only employed because of vandalism due to their vans and cameras, we're not talking about the static cameras, we're literally talking about the mobile cameras on the vans, and the security were there definitely from the first week of September, and obviously ULEZ only came out on the 28th. From day one, they were threatening, they were antagonistic. They're supposed to be trying to de-escalate a situation, not escalate it. I've been there on my own before, where I have been standing there and they already know information on me. They know my name. They imply that they know things about my life, which is intimidating. There's been many assaults. They've pushed a woman down to the ground in Bexley. They've thrown signs. They have managed to get the number of one woman and have threatened her.
I just want to apologise though for that image there, because there was an image of somebody in the van flicking the bird.
Oh yes, that's
the BBC.
That's quite common. That's quite common. Even abuse. I'm not going to say all, but let's say the majority. The majority are, dressed as you've just seen, and. To be honest, we can all do that. We could all dress like that and stand by any TfL, asset and claim that we're close protection or we're security. How do you prove it?
Well, a lot of them aren't showing their badges either.
They have point blank refused to show their badges. I did have, I wouldn't say it was an incident. There's been a lot of police time wasted. They will call the police at every opportunity. It's almost to create a situation. I believe that there has been from day one a directive to create a situation by which to maybe have us arrested on false pretences.
You think it almost feels like you're being set up? I mean, if you
100%.
If you were to appear near one of those cameras dressed like those characters there, you'd probably be arrested.
The last van I actually attended, I was there on my own. I'm not tall, I'm 5'1". I was on my own. I had that first image actually was my footage. That's how close he was to me. They normally stand on the pavement. They both came and approached me. One was standing right on top of me and telling me to move away from the van.
Not literally on top of you, though.
No, not literally, but he was close enough to be touching me, and I did feel intimidated. And I said, "You are trying to intimidate me and harass me. I'm a woman here on my own. I'm not going to be vandalising the van. I don't have any weapons on me." I said, "I feel like you're doing this to try and create a situation that I'm attempting to do something which I'm not." They did call the police. The police actually backed me up, and the police officer said to me, "I have to say, they have asked me to arrest you for criminal damage."
But what did you do?
I had done nothing, and the police officer said, "Don't worry, we're not going to, because we know you haven't done anything." And I said, "See what?" And I said to them, I said, "Why would you do that?" I said, "Why would you lie? Why are you trying to create these situations?" Every time they will attempt to antagonise. They'll even try and drive off with the cameras still running, and they're not legally allowed to do that.
We had that instant where Heather came to the studio and she was actually run over by one of these cameras, these camera people.
Yeah. And she's still recovering it. And
she's still recovering.
And the police are still investigating it.
I mean, it is unbelievable. Now, is this just happening near where you are, or have you travelled around other parts and found this?
Right, I can... So, obviously, we're all linked. I can tell you that these camera vans only go out to the 5 boroughs who actually opposed the ULEZ. The councils opposed it, and they are mainly on the boundaries. So they've been known to park on the boundary line of the ULEZ, and the camera's actually facing onto the non-ULEZ section of that road. So I don't even know if that's ethical. I do know that a lot of information, freedom of information requests have gone in, subject access requests, because we have an issue with the body-worn cameras. We have reported a location multiple times where they are within 500 metres of not just schools, but also a special needs school. It's been dark, there have been children in school uniform walking down the footpath, and I've said, "Are you recording?" And they said, "We don't have to tell you recording." Well, they do, under GDPR, under the ICO.
They don't know the rules, do they? And the problem is that anybody could dress up like that and pretend to be them and actually do bad things if they want to. Look, Howard, what is Sadiq Khan doing about this? Because he must be aware of what's going on. I'm aware of it, and anyone watching or listening to this now thinking, "Oh, well, it's only in London." No, it's not. We've got ULEZ in Birmingham, and they're planning to probably expand them all over the country, so you need to be listening to this. Howard?
Well, there's a lot of mayoral elections next year in Manchester and Birmingham and all those places, and this is a political absolute minefield of, in terms of a political interest. And they know it's not a vote winner. I think, it's what's happening in Manchester. I mean, Andy Burnham is actually not introducing clean air zone charges, etc. He's relying on having wonderful clean fuel technology, which is what I advocate, and that's what we should be doing. In answer to your original question about what Sadiq Khan's doing about it, I've written to him, and as you appreciate, he never writes back to me whatsoever. I've asked him simply, very, very nicely, I said, why are you doing this? And then the other thing also, you made the point about where they've opposed ULEZ, the boroughs opposed. I get something like 2,000 or 3,000 emails a week.
Wow.
And about 600 of them are from Greater London areas where this is happening. More so in the areas where it's been opposed, like Bromley, Dartford, etc., those areas. But he's not doing anything. No.
Can I say that there have been many complaints and freedom of information requests to TfL, to the SIA, and most of these, in a way, have been rejected because whatever legislation there is, somehow he has found the loophole to basically evade having to answer these questions, even on terms of requesting data of yourself, one of which involved an assault by security on a member of public, and they are rejecting that information under the Data Protection Act. So all legislation, all these regulations, somehow they found the loopholes within them.
That's, I suppose, they would argue that's the law. If they can, that's the law as it stands. And obviously, Howard, you would say that because you're a candidate against him going for mayor. So not that what you're saying is any less credible, but I have to point that out to our viewers and listeners that you are going head-to-head with him as mayoral candidate.
But I would not introduce something... Don't forget, taxpayers are paying for this. London residents are paying for the employment of these. I'm going to say it again, these thugs. You've seen the pictures.
Well, they
are not professional.
They're
not got the badges on show, and when you go up to talk to them, they walk away, run away, they do all this. They don't sit there, I am so-and-so from the security company, I represent this.
Can I also add that on TfL-run sites, so on underground bus depots, security, they wear high-vis, their badges are displayed, and they have a specific dress code. These are TfL representatives protecting a TfL asset. Why are they allowed to dress like this?
If they dressed like that and did the job that they're doing, you still would be, you wouldn't be happy with them either way. I mean, it's more the fact of what they're doing.
At the end of the day, everyone's human and everyone, wants to work for a living. We could say, they could be on benefits. They're out working. But I have to say it is the behaviour. They are out to deliberately threaten, antagonise and intimidate, and they are completely unlawful. It's almost as if they've had no training. It's almost as if they've just picked somebody off the street.
So what would you like to see? Because I know ultimately that you don't want the ULEZ. Most people don't want the expansion of the ULEZ in London, and there seems to be evidence that it's not really doing very much. I mean, Sadiq Khan was questioned about it. He doesn't appear to want to talk to any of us or other people about it, which is difficult.
I think it
help us.
Well, what is very worrying for me, the way he's approaching actually introducing this policy, it's a laudable aim. We want clean air. We want an environment. We all want that. But you don't do it by hitting people in the pocket, honest, decent people. He's cost London's GDP £1 billion. That sort of thing in terms of because of ULEZ. Businesses aren't coming in. The plumber, the electrician, they're not coming into work in London anymore. That sort of thing, he's destroying it.
But isn't he doing... Isn't that what... That's what he wanted? He wanted to get those vehicles out of London.
Well, I mean, for example, I've done multiple videos of essentially where I live. I live in the countryside, in the valleys, and a lot of the London boroughs are very suburban areas. We are not the city of London, and we don't have the public transport that London does. It's very easy for the average person to even check air quality. Go onto your maps, scroll down, and you have the air quality index, and it will actually tell you what the particles are, whether it's ozone 3, PM3. You've always been able to do that. I've always regularly monitored it. I check the weather daily, and our air quality is always between 1 and 2. Very rarely goes to 3, which is extremely good. Always has been.
And we're the 12th cleanest city in the world in terms of air quality. The 12th out of 115
you can justify whether you can justify the original congestion within the City of London, but to extend it to the suburban areas, which is countryside, we don't have the transport system. We will essentially be locked down.
That is a fair point. The transport networks aren't there to support
and they're not going to
this change, and it doesn't sound like they're going to be listening. Claire, thank you so much, and also Howard Cox. Thank you very much, Claire Dyer. She's an anti-ULEZ protester, and of course Howard Cox. But of course Sadiq Khan defends the need for ULEZ enforcement, so let's hear him out.
Ultra-low emission zone works in central London It led to an almost 50% reduction in toxic air. But here's the really bad news. In outer London is where the worst consequences of air pollution are. The 10 boroughs with the largest number of promotional deaths are all in outer London. And when you bear in mind our city has 500,000 people with respiratory issues, 2/3 of those in outer London. And I believe clean air should be a human right, not a privilege.
Well, that was Sadiq Khan speaking. Get in touch, gbviews@gbnews.com. What do you think about all these ULEZs? They will be coming to a place near you, even if you're not in central London. They're already in Birmingham and other parts of this country. But it's just gone 21 minutes after 5 o'clock. Coming up, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is New Year's Eve a damp squid? We'll also be discussing trains as they're being cancelled across the UK. Strikes are continuing. Is it time to nationalise the railway? Stay tuned, that's on the way.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show.
Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else.
We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride.
Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse.
It's news, but it's this close to entertainment.
Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, 25 minutes after 5 o'clock. If you've just tuned in, where have you been? You missed 2.5 hours. That's fine, because actually you get another hour of me, because after this I'm on the Saturday 5, so you better make sure you stay with me. But I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. This is GB News. We are the People's Channel. It's time now for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is New Year's Eve a damp squid? Much like squib even. Much like Christmas, New Year's Eve is traditionally a time for revelry, celebration and loads of other things. A chance to get together with your friends and your family and have a good old knees up. However, with the yellow weather warnings, floods and heavy winds across the UK forcing many Brits to cancel the New Year's travel plans, and that's if the train companies can be bothered to get trains out there, the price of pints and all the drinks continuing to skyrocket due to inflation, plus this year's festivities are probably going to be a bit less jolly than the previous one because of all the other stuff that's been happening. Remember, you've got the doctors and nurses strike. Some people are scared just in case they have a mishap. There'll be nobody there to help them, even though they're not striking today, but that'll be in a few days' time. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is New Year's Eve a damp squib? Now, I'm joined by travel editor at The Sun, Lisa Minott, CEO of Nighttime Industries Association, Michael Kill, and former Labour MP, Stephen Pound. Right, well, I'm going to start with you straight away. Michael Kill, I'm going to go with you first. What do you think about this? Is it turning out to be bad?
Well, I think there are plenty of success stories out there, but as you can appreciate, there are a lot of horror stories as well. Most of the trade sort of leading up to this period, which is this really important golden quarter that many of our businesses that we represent rely on to see them through the slower period next year, have really sort of struggled apart from the second week of December. I know November was a really challenging month, and Christmas really started very late, and similarly New Year's Eve has had a similar story. So we're seeing about a 20 to 30% downturn in trade. And the challenge that we have is, as you quite rightly said, the weather, particularly in the north of England, industrial action, that confidence in transport infrastructure has really been at an ebb low. So a lot of people are staying local rather than the normal transient nature of New Year's Eve. So we've got a huge challenge ahead getting a lot of these businesses across the line. And there is a concern that we may well lose quite a few in the new year as we start to see that things like VAT and rent and things will be due, and that will be reliant on the trade during that sort of October, November, December period. Is New Year's Eve in a damp squib? I think people will still go out and celebrate. The challenge that we have is whether they're going to come into the cities and celebrate in the cities, or whether they're going to do it at home, and that's the bit that we're challenged with. But we're hoping that there are going to be some success stories, but we're definitely concerned that long term, as we move into Q1, it's going to be a huge challenge for a lot of independent cultural trading businesses.
Lisa Minott, you're a travel editor for The Sun. Have people been put off by doing anything because of this nightmare situation we find ourselves in? Even though they're not striking now, there's literally hardly any trains, and the weather is so bad that a lot of them are being cancelled.
Yeah, I mean, it really has been a rather grim Christmas. Eurostar, through no fault of its own, has seen its second incident in two weeks where they've had to cancel all of their trains today because of flooding at tunnels near Ebbsfleet. That's over 30,000 passengers who were either heading to the continent or hoping to come back home to the UK, all now unable to do so. And there's still no sign in sight that actually things are going to get any better tomorrow. We've got a lot of people stranded in both Paris, Amsterdam, Brussels and London, unable to get to where they want to be. And we have this weather front that's going to be sweeping across the UK that's also going to be causing, I think, a lot of concern for people.
Stephen Pound. Stephen Pound.
Just a great commercial extravaganza, is it? It's not all about pulling pints and, pulling anybody for that matter. Look, it's about looking forward to the rest of the year. It's about your New Year's resolutions. It's about what you're planning for the year. It's actually looking back on what you've done, or what, in my case, what you haven't done in the last 12 months, and anticipating what you're going to do. And it's a family thing. It's not about great revelers roaring down the street, ripping their clothes off and behaving outrageously. It's actually about a quiet period of contemplation. Sure, gather round and sing Auld Lang Syne, but this isn't just a commercial extravaganza. It's actually about a serious, sombre, sober moment to look forward to the year and to make some resolution to be better. In my case, not difficult because, I start from a fairly low base. But it's where we actually look how much better we can be in the next 12 months.
Well, you're staying in, aren't you, Stephen? That's what that sounds like to me. You're staying in your house drinking alone, by the sounds of it. But what about all
most of the local pubs, to be perfectly honest?
But what about all the, do you think that because of, do you think it's partly because of COVID, Lisa, that people have changed the way they behave and now New Year's isn't that big thing? Because literally every New Year's I would always go out, I'd go to a pub, meet my friends, isn't that? But nowadays I'm quite happy just to sit at home doing pretty much nothing. Or maybe I'm just old.
I think there has been real challenges since the pandemic. Yes, I mean, we have seen a couple of years where obviously the industrial action on the railways led to huge numbers of trains being cancelled. And then engineering work has also meant that lots of trains have been cancelled as well. And it must seem for people, especially when the weather is as grim as this, that it might be nicer to just stay at home. As you said, there's been problems not just at Eurostar, but across the country. There's no trains at all on 6 northern routes today, and there won't be tomorrow either. So, I mean, it really is a bit of an issue in terms of people finding it very difficult to get places and perhaps deciding that, I'm not going to risk it yet again, have my plans ruined yet again. I'm going to perhaps just stay at home.
I don't blame them. Listen, I've got to say thank you so much to Lisa Minnow, also Michael Kill, and also former Labour MP Stephen Pound. Thank you so much for your thoughts. Happy New Year to you, even though it's tomorrow. I probably won't get to speak to you. So, yeah, what do you think? Is it a bit of a damp squib? Are you planning to stay at home? What are you planning to do for New Year's? gbviews@gbnews.com or tweet me at gbnews. 32 minutes after 5 o'clock, I'm Nana Akua. We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. Don't forget you can download the GB News app where you can check out all the programmes on the channel. But coming up, we'll continue with our Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is New Year's Eve a damp squib? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, author and broadcaster Christys Hamilton, also broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly. But first, let's get your latest news with Sophia.
Thank you, Nana. It's 5:32. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB newsroom. Thousands of people's New Year's plans have been thrown into chaos after Eurostar cancelled all trains to and from London. The company apologised after what it said was unprecedented flooding in a number of tunnels, including under the Thames. Up to 35,000 passengers have been affected, with many left stranded at London St Pancras station. Some have taken to social media to vent their frustrations, saying they were only told about the cancellations at 8 o'clock this morning. And forecasters are warning people to take care ahead of New Year's celebrations. Heavy rain and strong winds are expected in many parts of the country, with parts of Scotland likely to see significant levels of snow. The Met Office says yellow alerts are in place until 3 a.m. tomorrow. A murder investigation has been launched after a 29-year-old man was stabbed in northwest London. Emergency crews were called to the scene at the Abbey estate near St John's Wood just after 7:30 on Friday evening. The victim, who hasn't been named, was taken to hospital, but he later died. A cordon is in place near the famous Abbey Road crossing while detectives investigate. No arrests have yet been made. And you can get more on all those stories by visiting our website at gbnews.com. Now it's back to Nana.
Thank you, Sophia. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, I'll be testing my panel on some of the other stories hitting the headlines right now in my quick-fire quiz. Get ready to play it along at home.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show.
Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else.
We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride.
Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse.
It's news, but it's this close to entertainment.
Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm
not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. The Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. If you just tuned in, welcome on board. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Don't forget, you can also stream the show live on YouTube. It's just coming up to 38 minutes after 5 o'clock. And, of course, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is New Year's Eve a damp squib? Let's have a quick look at what you've been saying. Dave says, New Year's Eve used to be my favourite night of the year. The whole street would come together and celebrate. We don't have the community spirit anymore. I know what you mean. Harriet says, New Year's Eve is a great way to start the new year with a hangover. Much better to get an early night and start the new year fresh and healthy. I like that. And Jack says, like many people in hospitality, I'll be working on New Year's Eve. Double pay and no disappointment. It's a good deal. Very good. I like that. But what do you think? Is it a damp squib for you? So it's time now for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is New Year's Eve a damp squib? Joining me now, my panel, broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly, and also broadcaster and author Christine Hamilton. Danny Kelly, is it a damp squib?
No. The Daily Mail will send reporters to northern towns and cities, and on January the 1st, 2024, the Daily Mail Online digital platform will have photographs, hundreds of photographs of Scouse women spewing up in the gutters of inner-city Liverpool. Wearing
and Sunderland, and up north, and in Sunderland.
Wearing next to nothing.
In Sunderland as well.
In Sunderland,
same thing.
in Newcastle,
and Bristol.
in Leeds, in Bristol.
Cardiff.
London, every city centre will be rammed, every town centre will be rammed, London will be rammed. And
Do you think?
Yes, and all of the millions Khan has made from the ULEZ expansion, all of those fines, you wait to see what the firework display is going to be like. It's going to be the best in the world, and all those 12.5 quids, like I've had to pay today, gone towards it.
You set it on fire.
It's going to be a great New Year's Eve. But I understand New Year's Eve ain't for everybody. A lot of people get depressed and miserable at New Year's Eve, and I completely get it. Understand it completely.
Horses for courses.
What about you, Christine? You're partying because you guys are not coming here tomorrow.
We're not coming here tomorrow.
No, we can't do it tomorrow, no.
Because I'm going off to a wonderful New Year party, and it'll be fabulous. But, you know, some years, if I haven't been invited to a really good party, or we're not hosting an even better party, of course, just let it go. It's not a sort of be-all and end. I don't feel I missing out if I'm not celebrating New Year, and I have been known to go to bed before midnight on New Year's Eve. But hey, come on, don't be curmudgeonly. If you want to celebrate, do. But I know the people who overdo it, like you described, it's not restricted to northern towns.
No, what I said was the Daily Mail will only send them to northern towns.
No, they won't.
No, they will. I
just
guarantee
for
it.
goodness sake.
We will
You
find
don't
out.
know that, do you? Listen, I'll tell you what I want to do.
Find out.
I'm going to go to a pub. I don't normally go. I'll probably be in my house drinking champagne on my own, but I'm quite happy with that. But I would probably go to the local pub quickly and then just start the countdown, even though it isn't 10, 9...
What I like is the countdown that you see if you've got a television on. You see the countdown from the other side of the world and you see it coming closer and closer. I think that's amazing.
It's just when you do the countdown, then it's like, all right, let's go home now. That's what happens at the end.
Do you remember that dreadful New Year when the Millennium Dome was opened and Tony Blair was in charge of the country? And the Queen was there, and he tried to get the Queen to cross arms and do old lang syne.
She doesn't touch anybody.
No, she doesn't. I know.
Touch people. I don't blame her.
Somebody hadn't told Tony
She was
Blair.
ahead of the COVID game. I won't touch you.
The most excruciating footage imaginable.
At 20 seconds to midnight, I will be sent out of my mum and dad's house, where my wife and I will be. Piece of coal and bread and salt, I think it is. I'm not sure what they signify, but I will be banished to the street. And at midnight, and my father will let me in, and I come in bearing. I'm sure it's not coal. I'm sure it's salt and bread.
No, it's coal. Coal is what I understood it to be.
I know that it's bread and salt.
Somebody out there, tell us, please.
Tell these two dimwits.
What's the significance?
But this show is nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome our great British voices onto the show. Their opportunity to be on and tell us what they think about the topics we're discussing today. I've got 4 of you. Yeah! I'm going to start with you, Alan Cook from London. I'm expecting a little glass of something. He's always got something. Alan, is New Year's a damp squid?
Yes, he has.
Well, I'll have some afterwards.
Ah, what is it? Just water this time?
Just water, just water. What I think is it's down to the individual. So I would say it's a dry squib, which is obviously a firework, not a damp squib. And because you can do as you please on New Year's. It's an arbitrary date anyway. It has no real historic significance. We adopted the Gregorian calendar 440 years ago. So I see it as an arbitrary line. It's a time for reform and change so you can improve your life. And change and reform, I think, gives opportunity and hope. I see the new year as a chance to improve your life. Bring in something better.
Julie on board now. Julie Ford, Bedford. You're repeating yourself. Go on, Julie.
I've lost you. I can't hear you.
I am just going to answer Danny's question very quickly for him. It's bread so your house never goes hungry. It's salt so your life always has flavour. And it's coal so you'll always be warm.
You need to thank her. Thank her.
Thank you very much indeed, Julie. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, that's
No
nice.
problem. But to answer the question that I've been brought on for today...
Yeah, so Julie, very briefly, is it...
For some, absolutely. But for me personally, as I've got older, it's one of those things I prefer my pyjamas and a glass of champagne in front of the telly.
I'm with you on that. I love that. Yes, thank you for that. Julie, Jonathan Jones, he's there in Cornwall. Jonathan.
No, yeah, I'm sitting in the Alberton, which is probably where Cornwall's best New Year's celebration takes place, drinking tea. And do you know what? It's a time for New Year's resolutions and healthy new habits. And the world's first tea column starts in Country Life magazine next week. So great excitement for 2024. Cheers.
Well, let's hope in 2024 you'll have my reishi tea ready as well, because you've been promising that, and I haven't got it yet.
It's on its way to you.
Good. All right, Jackie Sampson in St Albans. Jackie.
Hello. It's not a damp squib to me, but I think when you go to these hyped up New Year's Eve special nights out, they're just overpriced with bad service and bad food. The best New Year's, the ones I love, is when any local establishments I frequent regularly, they shut it to the public, open it to regulars, and it's like a private party, which is what I would be doing this year as I welcome in 2024, because it's a milestone birthday year for me. So,
how old are you? 21? 21?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought.
30.
Thank you very much, Jackie. Thank you also to Alan, Julie and Jonathan. Lovely to speak to you. Those are my great British voices. Thank you. Right, well, listen, moving on to a story that caught my eye today. We've been taken on a roller coaster ride, not literally because the roller coaster isn't moving, by our railway network, with many people unable to get home for the new year due to train delays and cancellations. Today, my mini debate, I'm asking, is it time to nationalise our railway? Right, let's speak to my panellist, Gary Lineker? No, it's not Gary Lineker, I don't know why. Oh, I've got Gary Lineker on the brain. Danny Kelly and also Christine Hamilton. Christine, is it time? Do we need to nationalise?
Absolutely not, no. I mean, anyone who thinks nationalisation is the answer wasn't around in the 60s and 70s when the railways were an absolute disaster. The problem is that it isn't pure privatisation that we've got at the moment. The Department of Transport still has far too much control. And if you look at industries that are nationalised. I mean, the NHS is nationalised. Is that a good example?
Well, just because you've done it badly, you can learn from your errors.
But if an industry is nationalised, they are competing for capital investment with all the other taxpayer-funded things, and the decisions made about it become political, whereas decisions to run any industry efficiently, it should be economic, not political.
But it's political anyway. You've got the unions who are negotiating with the government, holding up all the...
Because the government has too much power over the franchise companies. They have a monopoly in each individual area, so there isn't enough competition. What the government should do is they should take what was it going to be, 180 million quid that they were spending on HS2, and if they spend that on cross-country railway lines, which is where they should have made the rail investment, at the moment, too many people have to go from up there into London and out again instead of being able to go straight across. That's the sort of thing we need to do to improve our railway infrastructure.
I don't have a problem with the nationalisation of the railway.
I do.
I don't. And Nana's right. I think we can learn from our mistakes. I don't think
we never do.
Well, I think we're capable of learning from mistakes. No, we're not. Although I disagree with Mick Lynch, the union boss of the RMT, one thing that he was always going on about was the dividends that the private shareholders were benefiting from. Terrible. And he was using that as the reason why they should not continue as they are. So that the trains were running terribly. I'm generalising. Some people will be very happy with the services. But the trains were running poorly. You yourself had a nightmare journey today, albeit
that was because somebody got on the line.
No, I get that. But over the festive period, lots of cancellations, lots of works on the...
There were strikes as well,
But a lot of the problems that...
Let Danny get to his point.
So, in summary, I would give another opportunity. I think there are certain things in life that maybe the government should nationalise. And yes, we've all got criticism of the National Health Service, but at least it's free at the point of needing the...
Can't say that about the railways.
I'd privatise that, though. I'd privatise that. I wouldn't have that going like that.
Most of the problems on the railways...
Let me just get to the end of that.
OK, I think there are essentials. I used to disagree with Nana about the privatisation, the nationalisation of water, and I think that that's a decent thing, because we all need water to survive. And there are certain things where people profit, and they put profits ahead of service. That's why they're in business. They're in business to maximise the potential for profit, and sometimes in business, shady business practice, the people who suffer are the customers.
Briefly, Christys,
well, OK, water is an essential, so is food. Why don't we nationalise food?
Why that doesn't make sense, though, because some people will eat more than others.
Because the reason why our food isn't even more expensive than it is because we have the supermarkets competing against each other.
That doesn't even make any sense.
Yes, it does.
It doesn't.
It does.
Well, no, it doesn't.
It
well,
doesn't,
if you give me time to elaborate.
No, water comes out of the tap at home, and the average bill is, say, £200 or £300 a quarter, whereas the average food bill is £2,000 or £3,000.
Yes, but you're saying that because water is essential, it must be nationalised. I'm saying food is essential too.
Yeah, but it's a service. One is a service. The other one is a service. The other one is something that you buy, and people do.
The last thing you want is the government and politicians interfering in these things. Right. Absolutely.
Well, listen. Well, thank you for that. That's going to run on, isn't it, Crikey? We should have done that as the main debate. But it's time now for our quick-fire quiz. This is the part of the show where I test my panel on some of the other stories hitting the headlines right now. So joining me, journalist and broadcaster Danny Kelly. Danny, your buzzer, please. And also broadcaster and author Christine Hamilton, your buzzer, please. Now, these two don't normally do the quiz, so just to let them know, and you at home, you don't buzz until I've finished the question. Otherwise, you'll be ejected from your seat. I've got a booster under yours, Danny.
Sounds exciting.
Right. So question one, please play along at home. A woman is trying to sue Giant Hershey over their Halloween-themed peanut butter treats that didn't match the packaging. But... what didn't she like about it? Was it A, the chocolate had nothing to do with Halloween, B, the chocolate was too small, C, there was a lack of a smiley face on the chocolate? Very hard question. Christine Hamilton.
I haven't got the slightest idea, but I'm going to go for C. Smiley face.
What do you think, Danny? I don't know what I was talking about.
Well, I'm going to go with A.
Do you know when you read something you don't know what you were saying? Let's see whether either... I bet it's going to be B, in it. No, it's C.
Oh,
lack of a smiley face on the chocolate. Very good. Well done. One to you, Christine. Right, question 2. Breakdowns caused by animals were one of the main pains for motorists this year. But what animal is causing the most problem? Is it A, rats, B, dogs, or C, birds?
I'm going with
Danny Kelly.
C, birds.
Christine Hamilton, press your buzzer if you want to answer.
I did.
Yeah, what?
I'll go for D, dogs. A, rats. Rats.
There's no D.
Rats. I've no idea.
I think it actually is rats. The answer is rats.
Wow.
Yes, there was a story because rats, you should know this, you've got a car thingy thing. You've got a car dealership. They've been going in, chewing the cables underneath people's bonnets. That's right.
Yeah, rodent infestation and chewing away.
No, but they've been
the
coming... This is a big deal. This is what...
I've never had any... Except for some dodgy customers, I've never had one rat in the dealership.
Some dodgy customers that leave pizza under the bonnet. All right, so question 3. Closest answer wins. Wetherspoon boss Tim Martin was knighted in this year's new honours list. But how many Wetherspoons are there in total in the UK?
Please, after you.
Buzzer first.
After you.
Buzzer.
Are we not being given a clue?
No,
closest
after you.
answer wins.
Go on, after you.
I haven't got the slightest idea. 260.
260.
I'm going for
You haven't pressed your buzzer.
800.
800. Closest answer wins. And the answer is... 811!
811, I heard it on the radio.
Did you?
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you go to Wetherspoons, Mum?
Yeah, Wetherspoons is great. It's for the working class, cheap booze, cheap ale, friendly environment, and they don't play music.
I was going to say that's the worst thing about it.
And you fill up your coffee, buy one cup of
music.
coffee and you can keep filling it all day.
Well, I don't drink coffee and I love music, so I'm not going in. Right. Question 4, true or false? Exercising more is the most common New Year's resolution. Buzzers first. Christine Hamilton.
True, probably.
Danny Kelly?
No, I think false. I think alcohol or ciggies is more common.
Do you think? The answer is... It's true! It's true! Yes, it is true. People like to exercise more.
Never been my resolution.
It's definitely been mine. Out of my 5-point plan, I'm going to get up, I'm going to go to bed at 9 o'clock, get up at 5 a.m, go to the gym at 6. Yeah. Right, question 6. Rebecca Welsh became the first woman to referee a match in the history of the Premier League. But what did she do? What did she work as before?
I haven't got the slightest... You're the footy.
No, just press your buzzer, just say something. Christine Hamilton, say something.
Waitress.
OK, go on then. Quick.
Lap dancer.
Lap dancer. They laugh. She worked in an office as an administrator for the NHS. We could have had some clues today, but we didn't. But anyway, listen, well done. I think, who won that?
I did.
Danny.
I did.
No,
I won.
Neither of them won. Right, on today's show, I've been asking, is our police force broken beyond repair? And according to our Twitter poll, 84% of you say yes, 16% of you say no. Wow.
That's
Crikey.
a terrible indictment.
Well, that seems to be the way it is. I've got to say thank you so much to my panel, broadcaster and journalist Danny.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And also thank you so much to you, Christine Hamilton, author and broadcaster. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nana, broadcaster.
My goodness, we're not going to see you
looking wonderful in orange.
Fabulous.
It'll be next year before we meet again.
I know. I feel here that song coming. We'll meet again. Don't know where. Actually, next week, Saturday, 3 o'clock, same time, same place. But I'm back tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Make sure you join me. It'll be a New Year's Eve festive occasion, and joining me will be Matthew Larser and also Lois Perry. So I look forward to seeing you then. Take care and have a fabulous evening. Up next, it is of course the Saturday 5, and well, I'll be there as well. So I'll see you in about 8 or so minutes.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. I'm Craig Snell. Well, looking ahead to New Year's Eve, for many of us, really, we're going to see a mixture of sunny spells and heavy showers. Still quite windy, and that's all courtesy of this area low pressure, which is only going to slowly move across the country as we go through this weekend. Note the tightly packed ice bars, especially across the south, so some strong and gusty winds, especially as we go through the course of today and tonight. As we go into the evening, this band of heavy and squally rain will spread its way eastwards. Behind it, a mixture of clear spells and scattered showers. That rain quite persistent later on in the night across Shetland and Orkney. But for many, temperatures still above freezing. Could just see a touch of frost across Scotland, where we still will see a little bit of sleet and snow. Into New Year's Eve itself, generally a mixture of sunny spells and scattered showers. Showers mainly focused across the west initially before transferring their way eastwards during the course of the day. Some heavy, possibly thundery showers too, and note across Shetland and Orkney that rain continuing to persist. The best of the conditions as we see out 2023 looks likely to be across the far north of Scotland. New Year's Day itself, for many southern areas, actually a much better day to come. Some sunshine here, good opportunity to get out and about. Further north, continuation of the sunshine and showers theme, and that continues as we go through the first days of the new year.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London